Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Tooele Happy Hour, starring Jared Anderson and David Weiss, where if Head Trauma had a podcast, humana. Anyway,
Head Trauma had a podcast, humana.
At least that's what Jared would say.
Yeah.
So today we have Holly with us. Holly, how you doing?
Good, thank you. Thank you for letting me join you guys tonight.
Again.
The returning star. Now, if Dave does leave to pursue a job elsewhere, I'm going to rope Polly into doing the show with me.
Oh man, with your makeup girl and your hairstylist and your fashion designer, I would be in here in a second.
You'll get more likes.
Dude, that's how we make it big.
Oh, yeah,
Spicy Holly on here.
that's a lot. What's that you're doing over there?
Someone's getting a little
Someone
head
needs
right
to
now.
show you how
Let me
to
see
pour a
that.
beer.
I know.
That's a sharp-looking can.
I know. This is the UTOG, Utah Brewing Company. It's a piggyback. It's a juice and IPA.
Are you
Save
showing
me
the
some of that.
camera? Because that OG, my daddy was the OG in our family.
I'm so glad they brew beer in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting there. Eventually, one day, we're going to have delivery service. We're going to
I think we got to thank Jimmy Carter for that, for making it legal to do craft beers.
Okay,
They're so kind
thank
to us.
you, Jimmy Carter.
Thank you, Jimmy Carter, and for the house buildings. But anyways, so lots going on in the news right now.
Where do we start, Jared?
Let's kick it right off with the ATF. All right, everyone's, if you haven't heard, okay, pistol braces. So anyone not familiar, you get a normally rifle that has been shortened and made into a pistol, which means it does not have a stock. And then to aid the handicapped with shooting these weapons, a thing was designed that is a pistol brace, which it comes off of the back of the weapon and then wraps around your forearm. And those are now illegal. Well, okay. Those are now a registered device under the NFA. They were legal forever. The ATF was always, they were okay with them. They actually signed off on them before they made them. And now they're making them illegal. And you have 3 months to register them, to pay your $200 stamp, and so that you don't, aren't a felon overnight.
So do we write our congressman about this or our senator?
Well, now here's the issue. I think laws, personal opinion, I think laws should be clear and defined.
Mm-hmm.
And so for right now, if these always were an NFA item, they should have always been declared that. And if they always weren't, but the ATF dropped the ball, then I think Congress should be the people who amends laws.
Now, with the recent bump stock situation in the appeals court, who actually said it was unconstitutional to make bump stocks illegal, and that the ATF did not have that power.
Well, it wasn't the ATF that made it illegal.
Yes, but the ATF doesn't have the power. Their argument was that no branch of government other than the Congress is able to make these laws. Now, that was an executive order by Donald Trump that could have been challenged because it does not turn a gun into an automatic weapon.
It was challenged right away. It was challenged even before it became a rule.
Was this one challenged
It took 6 years. This one is being challenged right now by a couple different groups.
Okay. So,
But 6 years. So let's say a guy has one of these AR pistols and with a forearm brace on it, and he gets caught with it.
And let's say he's an injured veteran who needs this brace
Yeah,
in order to
let's say
shoot at a range.
only got one arm or,
Yeah.
Whatever. But let's say that he gets caught with this, 3 months from now, and he gets popped with the felony charge. And I think they said $10,000 and up to 5 years in prison.
Up to. So
and you cannot
But
own a gun
one.
again.
Let's just say he gets that full load.
You never own a gun again because you're a felon at that point.
Let's say he gets that full load. And then 6 years later, the Supreme Court, notoriously expedient in their adjudications, comes through and says that's wrong. Do we give him that back?
Well, you can't give 6 years back.
Funny about that, right?
Well, I'm sure our government's just got our best interests at heart. And they're trying to protect you and me, Jared.
This feels kind of like it's an I think this is attacking the community of people that have disabilities.
Second Amendment and them. And it's a for me, here's the two things it feels like. It feels like a shady gun registration motive and
Cash grab.
tax revenue.
Well, the government shouldn't have to be worried about people with disabilities anyway. That's silly. What do people with disabilities have to do with anything about guns? Why should they even have guns? They're disabled, right? Should disability people own guns?
Every damn one of them in this country should.
I think every disabled person should arm themselves right behind every woman.
Well, I think the government's trying to tell us that they're a secondary class of citizen. They just need to suck it up and know their place. And
we gave you the ramps. What more do you want?
They need to know what water fountain to drink out of is what they're trying to say. So I'm telling you, everyone on this end of the podcast is probably like, Jared, you're crazy. The government is doing the right thing. They always do the right thing.
I get that a bit.
I don't think your followers think that way. Actually, I think that you've got some pretty well educated followers.
I'm just wondering. Okay, and here's a call out to our congressman, Stewart. Why would you let the ATF subvert your job? Here's an argument, and I think I've said this to Stewart. We're in this issue we are right now because Congress hasn't been doing their job for 100 years. They've let it be subverted and taken away from them.
Do you think that's by chance? Like, you think it's laziness, or do you think that maybe there's a plan behind it? And a minority of Congress can only do so much.
I think it's...
And when they get the majority, then it's about compromise on our side.
I think it's bite by bite.
I have a little inside information about how the government works. You see, congressmen are like commanders. They're transitory. They're there for a couple of years and then they're out. And then the base government employee is there forever.
Yep.
And that's what they say. They're like,
say, just smell that.
They kind of sniff out your commander. They sniff out the commander and get a sense of him, and then they adapt to that commander, and they're like, he'll leave in 2 years, and then we can go back to normal. And it's the same way with congressmen.
They call them temporaries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Where you've got the permanent state. They're called the deep state now, but they are and always have been the permanent state. They're the ones that actually run the machine.
Yes, and I've seen it firsthand, and I've heard it firsthand, and I've lived it firsthand.
That's also
I know it exists.
That's also a usurpation on the design. We weren't supposed to have that.
Right.
So, hey, we failed. Good job, America. Yeah, but that's what I wanted to talk about a little bit and hear people's thoughts on. There are people that's coming out against it. I'm a member of a couple of gun owner associations, and that's the word on their street. But we need our Congress to step in.
Well, now that we have the majority, there are certain things we need to request of our Republican-led Congress, and we need to ask them to stand up for the things they promised. And honestly, any one of you can reach out to your congressman and ask him. I think all of Utah is male congressmen. So, but you can reach out to them and they should be able to hear your thoughts on this. And the more logical your comments are, the more logical you are, not heated and angry, they're going to listen and they understand. And the thing about Congress is they're literally doing their job for 1 year, and the next year they have to run for the next year. So I hate that their terms are 2 years.
Do you think it'd be?
I hate that it's only 2 years because I feel like they only get 1 year's worth of work.
Do you think it'd be different if we put if we made Congress a 4-year term but put a 1 or 2 year term limit on it? Do you think that'd maybe improve it?
Yeah, Congress and Senate both should have term
Senate's
limits. I think
Senate,
3. I think if you did Senate and Congress 3 terms, I think in 3 terms you can get it. You can get what you need to get done. The problem is,
then you still lose a major amount to the running for office instead of running.
You have to extend. I mean, if Congress is 2 years, why can't they be 4?
I'd rather
why can't the Senate be 4? The president is 4.
I'd like to see us take away the 16th Amendment when it comes to the Senate, do away with the popular vote. So the Senate is elected by a smaller body of your state senators. And that's where your senator initially, according to the divine biblical level document that was written, that's where they were supposed to come from.
Yeah.
And then put your congressman down as I would put them down for I would honestly move them into a 6-year term. And
they both have equal power in this, but different jobs.
And
right?
limit them to I would limit them to 1 consecutive term.
Really?
And that way they don't run again. That way, while they're in office, they concentrate on that office the whole time.
See, and I have to say that working with these men, and I bring up Mike Lee as an example. He was going to do 2 terms and be done. And yet I know he worked extremely hard for 2 terms in a minority Senate.
Sure.
And a majority Senate.
Like you said, though, during that election year, how much do we lose of his value to
and we had the minority
reelected?
at the time. And this was with Mike Lee. So he'd already had 6 years. But when it came down to it, and he's deciding to run for his 3rd term, and I'm looking around at who's going to be as good and who's as passionate and who is as conservative that can step up to the plate. I didn't feel like his work was done yet. So, until we get really great people willing to serve, honest people with character, I know those things don't fall in line with politicians, but there are some out there, and Utah has many of them, and I would hate to limit them to 1 term.
Let me pose a
even
question.
2.
When is his job done?
I think when things like, when we can talk about abolishing the IRS, for one, and when we can talk about the Constitution on the floor of the Senate without it being a swear word, and talk about term limits like he has before, and talk about making bills. I mean, he's asked that they make bills be 1 page. If your bill is bigger than 1 page, then
I like
it's
it
too full. But when those actual things can actually go to the floor for a vote, and we don't have a majority leader who won't even call it to vote.
So then when he's like Hatch and he spent 75 decades in there and none of those things have been done, can we still then say we think he should stay until his job's done?
Hatch didn't do any of those things.
Hatch didn't do anything. Except
he did a lot, just like Biden did a lot.
Except back Joe Biden on the drug war.
The thing I'm saying is when you get a real conservative in there, somebody who
I
feel is speaking for the people of his state, and he's actually trying, and you see what's happening, to lose someone like that to just the next person who has to start all over again and make new relationships. And I mean, it's a swamp there.
That's why I want to see the Senate done by the state legislatures. No longer a popular vote for Senate.
Jared, a historical aspect to this question was it used to be shameful to run more than 2 terms because they would say, are you better than George Washington?
Exactly.
George Washington put a standard of 2 terms. I don't know if it was because he was honorable or if he was old, but he put a standard of 2 terms And everyone who tried or thought about running that third term in government would be shunned by his peers. And they used the phrase, "Do you think you're better than Washington?" And that died away.
Who broke it?
Roosevelt, wasn't it?
Yep.
He's definitely broke it.
Yeah, he got 4 terms. Well, 3.5.
But never again. I mean, that can't be done.
They
again.
actually wrote it into law that a president can only serve 2 terms because of him.
Mm.
But no, and here's my I would like to see the senator move back to the state legislator nominates him. One, that's a smaller pool of, you're not just throwing it out to the masses and then they don't have to go around and argue.
I just see this being drama. You are taking the
That's the
voter
way it initially was.
vote away. I know, and I understand it.
And it worked
But
better
right
then.
now, just suggesting somebody has ID to vote is suppression in this world we're living in.
I
So
think they
imagine
should own
saying,
property.
you guys don't get to vote for your senator that's going to
yeah.
Washington. I
I mean,
can just see
we
that
can
being
just
a big
start out.
problem.
We'll kick it off with the rollback of the 19th. Then we'll hit the 16th. She didn't even catch on. I thought I was going to get
And on the
slapped.
articles,
You know what the 19th is?
yes, I do.
Oh, okay.
I'm not
I
going to
thought you were
slap
gonna
you.
say-
I'm going to keep my cool today.
I mean, according to the Constitution, I think I'm too dark to vote at all, actually.
You probably are.
So I
Can't
think
be-
I'd be out of the run.
Well, it's the 19th and the 16th. I think that the
Well, that's like this thing, this IRS thing. Let's bring that up.
right.
So they argue, and the Republican majority now, actually a minority of the majority, puts forward a bill or puts forward a query to get rid of the IRS in the safest time the government can do that and look good.
It's true. I mean, it could be
Because
theater. Is that what
They
you're
don't
saying?
have a veto proof majority.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way in hell this could pass. No way in hell this could pass. They don't have the Senate, and they don't have a veto proof majority. So why not put it forward now? They're just throwing chum out in the water to their constituents, and nothing can come of it.
Well, there's 85,000 new hires in the IRS, and that should definitely be, and that's going to be investigated as well, according to Jim Jordan. So that's something that
Investigated to what end, though?
investigated. Why do they have to be armed and trained? That should scare everyone.
Everyone should be armed and trained.
I mean, why hasn't any of the Republican majorities, when even the Republicans held the House and the Senate, why haven't they said, okay, now it's time we redo our tax system, simplify it? If we went with the flat tax, there is no more IRS. If we went with the sales tax base, if we went with the tariff tax base, I don't care. There is no more IRS. You make our tax
A
book.
postcard.
Yeah.
That was Ted Cruz's suggestion when he was running against Trump, is that I would abolish the IRS. We would have a flat tax or a fair tax.
Rand
And
Paul's been arguing
It'd
for
be
it
the size of
forever.
a postcard. You could fill your taxes out. Of course, you'd put a lot of accountants out of business and things like
Sure.
that. But it would, and that was under a majority of everything.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that there's a swamp there. And
Problem is, I don't think they actually mean it.
well,
I think very few senators and congressmen, no matter what they say to their constituents, actually mean it.
Well, the IRS is, let's face it, we don't pay our bills through the taxes that we pay.
That is true.
The IRS it's a very important tool for the government, because with the IRS, you can punish your enemies and reward your friends.
Well, it's not just that. It's not just that. It's your Catholic confession. It's once a year you go and prostrate and stress yourself out over your overlord. And that's all it is. It's just a mental game. Because let's face it, in our modern, Federal Reserve, they don't care. They don't need us to pay taxes to get by.
we wouldn't
They
have
just hit
roads,
print.
Jared.
They just hit enter. Yeah, I know. There was never roads before taxes.
you just add a few zeros on there and look, you're an economic genius.
Yeah, that's all they do, Not to mention, money is popping into existence right now, free from the Fed. every time you run your credit card,
Yep.
every time you get a car loan, that's money popping into existence. The Fed doesn't even have to print it anymore. It just pops into existence.
We just hit our debt ceiling again.
What is this?
And
What is this mystical creature you speak of?
Every time we hit the debt ceiling, and then threats of shutting down the government, and then they can have to get rid of essential workers. And the threat the Democrats say is, people aren't going to get their Social Security or their Medicaid, and that's all going to be cut.
Our
And
Ponzi
yet,
schemes aren't going to work.
that's the problem. We as Americans have paid into this system. We should expect to have it back, but both parties have drained that, and no parties have yet to get it under control, make a budget, and balance it. There hasn't been a balanced budget since Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
And if we can't do that, and then we're the bad guys because now we have the purse, and we need to start auditing where the money to Ukraine is going, where the money in the FBI goes, where is the money in the Pentagon? How does the Pentagon lose $230 billion in an audit? And it's like, when do you just start printing $1 million bills and just passing them out? Because that's all they're doing right now.
Ask me about Bitcoin.
Did you already do the sharing?
I did not.
Oh,
I did not. Actually,
jump on and do the sharing.
I just got taskmastered by my wife for a moment.
Did you jump on and do the sharing real quick? Or what's the task you've been mastered?
Can you say it out loud?
Probably not.
With that face, you can't say it out loud.
She'll kill me.
Okay.
But stand by. I'm almost halfway.
Here, I'll just do the sharing while you do your.
Look, I don't want people to be this economy right now is bringing everybody down, and both sides are. I don't know how Democrats can cheer on our current administration. I'm often appalled at just watching a press conference that I'm just like, why are people putting up with this? And I am seeing the press be a little more pushy with Biden now that these new documents showed up in his garage.
We should talk about this because I got a conspiracy theory on this.
I do too. I think that
I don't. I think he just forgot and left them there.
Yeah, but Trump purposely did it, and we needed the FBI to raid his place. And oh, by the way, we found his a couple days before the election, but we're only telling you now because the election is over. All of this, and there's probably enough to, I don't know, if you had a Republican angry enough Congress to get rid of this president. Which is probably what the Democrats are ready to do.
No, I honestly think the first ones they found, I think they've probably known they were all there. Every president has had these documents. Not every vice president, though.
A vice president doesn't have the right to not,
he can't declare things not unclassified. He can't unclassify.
Well, this wasn't a big deal until Trump came along, I bet. That's my theory. They're just looking for things to nail the guy on.
But I think right now, they're using this because they're afraid Biden's going to continue to run.
Yeah, this is like, hey, this is your last term. This is your last term. And I know this, I feel this in my bones because the press isn't letting it go.
They want him out. They're afraid okay, here's the issue. Here's where we stand. My thoughts on the field right now. Okay, one, I want to go back. Why aren't Democrats bummed out? I'm a Chicago Bears fan. Sad to say. Make fun of me all you want. I know.
I'm a Raiders fan, so I know pain.
Okay, make fun of her a little more. Anyways, so the Bears could change their uniforms to the ugliest thing, and they could, just be totally messed up. But if they're winning, I don't care, because politics is a team sport nowadays for 50% of the population. The people that truly matter is that middle slice independent. That's who all politicians fight for. They fight to get an independent on your side without sacrificing their red meat of their party base. So that's where it is. That's why the average Democrat would rather have Biden in than any Republican, hands down. Your independents right now are looking at the field going, oh, this is scary. And the Democrats know that. So I think we're going to keep seeing stuff coming out of Biden's. I mean, they'll find something in his master bathroom next week. They're going to continue to find stuff until I think they get a concession from Biden that he will not run again.
I don't even know if I could see him resigning during his term.
I don't think he'll resign. Well, he might. That's a good. But who else does the Democrats have that could run?
They're pushing the California governor.
Okay, Newsom. Newsom gets zero independent support nationally.
Yeah, because he's destroyed one of the most beautiful, amazing states in the nation.
He's slimy. He looks like he's a suave serial killer.
Actually, I want to disagree with that, Holly. I mean, think about this. He's spending money like crazy, and he's getting the other states to pay for it.
I didn't say he was stupid. I just said
I'd say that's a hero for his people.
I mean, his people in California just... Can you tell me why they're having this big rain and all this stuff, and they've had a drought? And I'm saying, why are they not building reservoirs? Is California not focusing on building reservoirs? They're going to make every car electric by 2030? Yeah, but right now they can't even run their own electrical grid, while our reservoirs are being drained for their electricity now. I mean, Lake Powell is almost too low. Lake Mead, too low. Why aren't they building reservoirs and taking advantage of a good year for rain, which is also known as climate?
It's probably stuck in committee. Well, let's talk about the climate. This last weekend, they just had a little gathering of private aircraft and helicopters and big SUVs.
Well, they can't fly commercial.
But they flew on their private aircraft to go and discuss how to take away our fossil fuels from us.
Yeah, our fossil fuels that actually run our food to and from, run products to stores, that run our police cars, run our ambulances, our fire trucks. I mean, there's absolutely climate change is a religion right now.
Oh, yeah.
And climate change in itself is it's like saying weather. Because that's what weather is.
I would say Black Lives Matter is a religion. I would say the trans agenda is a religion.
Well, climate change is definitely up there, and they think they can fix it with money. How do you fix the flares coming off of the sun with money? That's what's causing a lot of this. Dr. Scott say, well, it was hotter 1,000 or million years ago. I mean, then there was a cold ice age, a literal ice age. That's what happens. There were no SUVs during the ice age that caused that. In the 70s, they were saying it was going to be another ice age by the year 2000. Then they started saying that we were heating up and that oceans are rising. And yet you get a picture of that same group, that climate change group, meeting in that same location every year, right there at the ledge, right by the water. Same picture every year, and the water is at the same level. And they're trying to teach this. They're teaching this to our kids so little that they're afraid. They're so afraid, and there's no solution. And then you're going to get energy. You're going to get electric cars all over the roads. Right. Well, what you need, one of our most important resources, which is water, for electricity, correct?
Yeah, so, about those electric cars, so we're all converting over to that in the government now, and I still have a gas van for my section, in the safety section.
My favorite thing is
in the safety section.
People are calling me. They're like, I have to go to Dugway, and I'm afraid I can't make it back if I take the electric car because the battery runs out when I get there. And
that's my favorite thing. They, the two trucks that showed up, the first two Fords or whatever they got there, maiden voyage to South area. It had to sit on the side of the road. Just the south
We're
area.
not there yet.
We're talking 35-minute drive, and it was done.
But I'll tell you what, man, they are comfortable little buggers.
They got juice.
They do. They're fun to drive.
And the thing is they're great, and they're a great concept. If we have the water and the resources to keep them going, we need the technology to make them go longer. They're not logical. I don't want police cars electric. Well, what if they can't make it to my house?
Then they can't arrest you.
Well, you want them then electric. But okay, let's say an ambulance or a fire truck. I mean, the things that we need to not be electric. Snow plows.
You just gave me a great idea. I'm fighting for electric police vehicles. I'm going to join Greta Thunberg on this one.
Thunderberg.
That's awesome.
I think that to order something, and I think that they're not thinking logically here. And they're also blaming a lot of CO2 and all of that. What was the valleys like? I'm sure that we have pollution in the air due to vehicles. I'm sure that is the case. But is that the reason that we don't have snow every year? And then some years we have a lot of snow. Thank God. This year we're getting tons of snow. It's called weather.
I don't know.
That's why they quit saying global warming and called it climate change because, oh, shoot, we're not actually hotter. We're not breaking records. All the records that were broken were still in 1930.
I remember them talking about global freezing with the snowball effect.
Yep.
Yeah.
That scared me when I was in 5th grade, man. I was like, oh, my God, we're going to all die.
Yep.
That's what they do. They get in your head and they scare you to death.
At a young age, too. And here's the other thing. With the 1 degree temperature that's gone up, what has changed? Something that has changed, and we've been able to grow more food.
Oh, yeah.
In places that couldn't grow food before.
I'll get you one.
And, if it gets warmer by a degree and more people get to eat, or we get more rain and more people get to eat, all these things aren't bad things.
Well, sometimes I don't want people to eat, though. I think sometimes there's like too many food products going to the people that are causing this problem in the first place.
Okay, Bill Gates.
Well, think about this. If you get all the people on food stamps to reproduce with each other.
He's opposite. He's Gil Bates.
I'm just saying, it could be a eugenic breeding program to create retards, but you don't want them so retarded that they can't pay taxes.
I think you just got banned on YouTube.
Oh, the R word.
You can say the R word on YouTube.
I love that word.
I've said it a few times. I've been trying to break myself of the habit. Do you remember?
I used to say that all the time. They used to call me retarded in school.
Do you remember when we were in elementary school? Do you remember what Wednesday's Child was?
Yep. Full of love.
Wednesday's Child. Yeah. That's what we used to call our friends growing up.
Place to go.
We called each other Wednesday's Child instead of the R word.
Well, then that is society and I just heard they made the word irregardless a word in the dictionary.
Well, irregardless, I don't see what that has to do with anything.
It's not. This is the thing. We're changing words to fit an ignorant society rather than educating them.
Where are we changing society? I'm telling you, if you can get 2 stupid people to breed, they create a tall...
Have you seen Idiocracy?
Of course I have.
Have you?
Where did I get my law
I
degree?
haven't.
Costco?
You haven't seen Idiocracy?
No, I have not.
Oh.
Where did you get your law degree?
Go away.
Costco.
Banging. It was tough to get in, but my dad was an alum.
Yeah, he's like President of the United States, like a world wrestler, and
His
they're
name
watering
is-
their grass with this Powerade.
What's his name? Daniel
I heard it was a good
Macho
movie.
Mountain Dew something or another.
He's branded. He's like a NASCAR president. All the corporations that own him, he has to wear all their...
He comes out with a saw, like he's shooting it in the air as a celebration.
You have to see it.
It's on my bucket list.
Well, where's your bucket? Just watch it already.
That is a great show.
But anyway,
Great, but it's also terrifying because you see these...
Oh, it's true.
The Carl's Jr. automated you know, there's no Carl's Jr. You go up to a machine, you order it. It's like the McDonald's
Yep.
machine, and the thing pops out. And then if you start getting mad at it because it messes up your order, it just sprays you and you fall asleep.
Welcome to Costco. I love you.
I'm not upset about this automation thing, to be honest with you. I think it's pretty cool.
I don't mind. I don't mind, but I just want to know, when's the Christmas party, the Walmart Christmas party for the self-checkout?
I think
people?
we're going to.
Because I do all my own checking out. Do I get to be part of that Christmas party? I'm one of the best employees they have.
Let me give you my address for the 1099, please. I think when automation fully kicks in, we're going to have a couple of years where we see true struggle.
You mean worse than we're seeing now?
Easily. Imagine
Why?
Imagine when that many people are unemployed. Imagine when there's that much strife. We're going to see crime rates through the roof.
More than now?
Oh, easy.
Because now crime is through the roof.
There's only one way crime can go through the roof, and that's if the government bans securing braces.
No, I think we're going to see things like that. We're going to, it's going to be, imagine Detroit, because Detroit is a small controlled scale of that. Imagine Detroit spread across this civilization.
And
it's not just here, it'll be a world civilization.
Well, that's what it's happening slowly now. I mean, Detroit was damaged by the Democrat policies that were in place there.
And a little bit of Romney policy. Let's not forget.
I'm
Romney
talking
ran
about old school Detroit. Used to be the
it
greatest
was the
town
number one city on
in
earth
America.
in 65.
And that was the thing. Like they were producing, they were doing amazing things. But policy, and then you add into the welfare situation and the changing of that and getting rid and splitting families, and then the auto industry, we're going to start buying overseas and we're going to put auto workers out of work. And now you've just taken this brilliant shiny city and you've obliterated the potential.
Now imagine that situation across not just the whole state, but imagine that spread across the whole civilization where AI has stepped in and taken over just 20% of the jobs.
So in that situation, though, my security would be AI. So it would like pop out of the roof with a gun turret and just blast the guy as he's trying to rob my house, right?
Sure, I guess. I mean,
you would still need
you
law
would have
enforcement.
you'd have to have some kind of AI fans that blow the smell of the death away from your yard. The disease that would go rampant through the community. I mean,
no, there would be AI robots to come clean up the corpses.
Your water would become useless. I mean, if we're going to talk about pollutants, what would a mass die-off of humans do to, like
Humans
you
are
would
biodegradable.
grow plants like a mother, but what would it do to the water table?
Depends on your filtration system.
Could it overwhelm?
Let's
the
get
water
off this
table?
train and go back to your initial thought, which was AI and the jobs that it would take over. You would always need somebody managing technology.
Sure.
Fixing.
Sure.
You still would have.
100%.
Here's the problem: if you have electric vehicles that drive themselves, where are you gonna put the batteries of those things when they go out?
Oh, well, I mean, we know we do it
ship them into
masks.
space.
Don't we put masks in the Pacific Ocean? That's where we put masks, right?
The batteries in an electric vehicle.
The life-saving masks that we use for our pandemic, the lifesavers that.
But what I'm saying is,
Susan,
even these electric vehicles, they cost thousands and thousands of dollars for those batteries. And once they're gone, and they're not recyclable.
Are you sure?
Yeah. This is one of the things that Tesla was trying to design a battery that is recyclable or able to fix, but it's not like you can put it in the ground because it's toxic.
I think the heavy metals in those batteries are very valuable, and if you have the right pool of child labor to extract those minerals, it's actually quite profitable. But
So
if you
you're
got to pay
talking China,
if you got to pay someone $15 an hour to extract those minerals from the battery, it doesn't make sense.
Okay, I'm not showing this picture on screen because I ain't fighting with it. But just for you guys, now France was the first nation to demand like its municipal and taxis go electric. And this was done about 7 years ago.
Yeah, they literally have a dump yard,
They have
junkyard full of
no,
electric
they have
vehicles
graveyards.
as
full-
far as the eye can see, and there's
because
nothing you can get
They
out
have
of
a
them.
lifespan, and you cannot repair them. You cannot, or they're
You can't recycle the
cost-
battery, and it's
cost
toxic.
prohibitive
Right.
to compare them.
That's because you got to pay people this thing called a livable wage. If you did do away with that, the opportunities for recycling would open up.
Everybody's proven that slavery is an economic negative to the people who run the slave.
Tell that to that vehicle graveyard.
Well,
Still, it'd be a net negative.
I think in theory it'd be awesome if we could have electric cars and not have pollution. But I also love a 69 Charger and that grumble that it makes and the speed that it has and the fact that it can go hundreds of miles without me worrying about it dying. Unless it breaks down, of course. But the old school muscle cars, I mean,
I think, I'm still hung up on the automation. Yes, there will be people that work on that. But I'll just tell you a story, an anecdote, real life. At the salt plant in 2000, to run the extra coarse crystal line took about 5 people minimum. Right?
it's your story. I don't know.
And then
if you're right.
they automate and they use one person and it outperforms the 5.
Oh yeah, that happens in a
But-
lot of
so
industries.
that's still, so yes, but imagine a mass scale automation coming online where this automation is replacing humans in function.
It's been happening since the technical era. I mean, there used to be
Yeah.
phone operators that had to connect calls. Well, they lost some jobs once you could call direct.
Sure.
And this
And
is beautiful. I
we
think this is
find
great.
new jobs, new innovation. People are innovative by individual spirit. They're innovators. If you don't squash that,
No,
they'll
I
find
agree.
ways to create jobs.
I agree, but there's never been an automation that replaces this minuscule level on this wide a spectrum.
I think it's wonderful when people can be freed up to do more thoughtful work, because I think of like people in banks, like what a waste of humans, because these are really smart people. And all they do is they sit there in front of their computers and type in the numbers that really don't, I mean, it's a waste of time, because those people, they could be doing things like coding and helping the Bitcoin community or something.
Got it in there. But I have to say, in a job like a bank, and my bank especially, has got the most amazing people in there, which are very smart.
Up
But
for a loan, are you?
when-
Just
no.
say yes on the loan. Just
No,
say yes.
but what I'm saying is that person-to-person contact when you're dealing with money or food, I think is still very important. I don't like to do the automated McDonald's ordering. I want to talk to a person. Now, I don't know if they're making 15 or 30 or 50. That's not my issue, but I think there's that human person-to-person contact where at a level of trust. I don't want to see a doctor that's a robot. I want somebody that I can speak with and communicate with. So, yes, bank tellers and people who work in banks are great and probably could be doing something else. But I think the bank needs that for people to have that trust.
Those are smart people that could be doing much more productive, much more thoughtful work. But instead, they're basically enslaved
So
to
what
a,
do you
a
mean?
monotonous system.
So explain to me, because you dropped your porn word. Explain to me your idea of how they could help out the Bitcoin.
Well, they arrived at work in their office, let's just say on a Wednesday,
Are you talking about a bank manager or like a teller?
all of them.
Because tellers, usually that's where they start and they move up. Just like when you work at a McDonald's, you start there, but you move on to a career.
Well, on this particular Wednesday, they all arrived to work, open up the door, and they go to their offices, and there's a pink slip sitting right there for them all.
Okay.
Okay. And then they have to pick up that pink slip and think, what do I want to do in my life now? And there's this huge field of automation available to them that helps increase human productivity.
Okay.
And so they go start to learn how to build robots, code robots,
That's
fix
innovation.
robots. Instead of, I mean, think about what we really do in a banking system. Nothing really. I mean, it's like playing house. It yields nothing in the end. It's just a make-believe pigmentation of zeros and
I
ones.
was asking particular the helping Bitcoin. What do you want them to do to help Bitcoin?
Oh, well,
Well, they find a way to mine it, right?
that
Or they create a new version of it.
I mean, yeah,
Or-
after you just get fired, that's the option to do is to go dump.
I think
go
his
dump
point
10
is-
grand into a miner.
if everyone lost their job tomorrow and the government didn't have their foot on our neck, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would come out of the individuals in this country? I mean, weren't there people who invented combustible engines that ran on water?
Well, I mean, we can talk
they-
about
Hydrogen engines,
about
yes.
Stan Myers a little later. And yes, I have a hydrogen generator in my garage that I built.
Don't
You're
say
not
that
gonna-
out loud ever.
You're not going to run an engine on it.
You really did?
Yeah, I've got one that's out in my garage.
That's scary.
I can turn it on for you.
You're asking to put a target on your head.
Why?
Tell
Well,
them
we
why.
can talk about Stan Myers later on. We can.
What I'm saying is, when people are allowed to be innovative,
Uh-huh.
when people don't pull the ladder up after they get to the top,
Karl Marx is on the show tonight, folks. Go on.
you're allowed to. When you actually, people will venture out to create something.
Sure, a
That the
small
public
number.
wants.
I know we had a huge explosion of innovation from Detroit rotting. I know this. That's not the average.
Nobody, people left Detroit. People abandoned
Yeah,
it.
the
and
place
they went
rotted
and
and
looked
people-
for people.
And people
Looked for other
rotted
jobs.
and crime exploded until even crime wasn't profitable.
Yeah,
That's what happened.
but that's the government standing on those people's
Imagine that
necks.
across the whole nation.
And crime can only be prosperous if the people aren't allowed to protect themselves.
Amen.
Crime can only be prosperous if the people aren't allowed. Well, no, I don't think that is true.
How so?
I think crime can be prosperous even if the people are allowed to protect themselves.
I don't know. Look at the cities and states right now where places like Target, places are starting to lock everything up in certain cities because people are just going
Sure.
in, fill in baskets and leave.
Sure.
If they had security that could shoot people for stealing
Mm-hmm.
property, I think crime would go down in that store.
Sure. Or maybe the people, if the odds are weighed
Not
To
shoot
where-
and kill, but maybe electrocute.
to where
a
their
little bit.
to where their desire to
You're too
commit
kind.
that is strong enough that they're willing to go to extreme violence, it can still be profitable.
Well, a lot of things could be profitable. You could sell fentanyl and be profitable.
Sure.
Doesn't
I'm not
make it
I'm
right.
not arguing
What I'm
for
saying,
I'm not arguing right or wrong. I'm arguing that I don't think just your ability to defend yourself stops crime from being profitable.
How much, however, if you were to sell fentanyl, you want to look at like what George Floyd had in his system because the doctor said that's okay. And then you make
Actually,
pills.
the doctor didn't.
yeah,
Yeah, he said that's not an overdose.
No,
No.
he didn't. He got pressured into saying the police officer killed him, but the fentanyl was
But
there and was going to do it
fentanyl.
anyway.
He would have been dead within. Was it? It wasn't the. It was the medical examiner's first report. He
The first
said,
report
this
came
guy-
out clear.
he
The
thought-
next one that had a little bit of aid still came out and
They
said
said
the
this
fentanyl
guy-
was a killer.
No, it was like 0.09 micrograms per 10 deciliters or something of blood. He had a very small, minor amount of fentanyl in him.
Actually, he
and,
had a.
and they said it's okay to have that.
He
amount
had
in-
a. No, they didn't, and he had a small amount.
okay.
Oh my
But
gosh.
it was there are police officers that accidentally touch fentanyl on a doorknob
or they
just
inhale
fentanyl
a little
dust.
bit of dust, and it's
and they're Narcanning them seconds after.
Yeah.
Fentanyl is a beast.
Well, you got to figure out the right dose, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like George Floyd did. And then that's what you can market. But if you sell fentanyl and people die, it will not be a profitable business.
Very true.
So I don't understand why everyone thinks that selling fentanyl is profitable because it kills you.
Well, okay. Let's go into, there are mistakes made, but I would say the average fentanyl dealer knows how much to give someone, has it measured out. I would say the average fentanyl user is also aware of their desires and
Except for all the ones
limitations.
that died because of it. Because we have a
I think
huge
those are
death
accidentals.
toll. Yeah, but it's people who bought a product and didn't maybe realize it
You
was
know,
laced with fentanyl or whatever.
You hear stories
died.
from small time drug dealers all the time, how they move into selling a different drug. So let's say they're an ecstasy dealer outside of a rave, and they've got a rave coming up this weekend, and their distributor says, "I'm out. I got nothing for you." This guy, his whole week is planned on his revenue from this rave, and also he's also made a promise of at least 50% of that to people going to that rave, so they're expecting it. And then someone comes up to him and just says at random, "Look, I got something. It's not what you normally buy, but I got this." And that's how I think fentanyl gets introduced most of the time.
Plus, there's a lot of money being made across the border for those that are just bringing it in.
Oh yeah.
And there's a lot of money in China being made where it's produced and shipped to
Not
Mexico.
just that, but it also, it behooves China to let something like that into our nation to get a little bit of that opium wars revenge.
Well, it's killing a lot of people. It's hurting a lot of people.
Yeah, it is. It's awful.
And
It's awful. And legalizing drugs would be the remedy.
that's the libertarian in you. Which
Well, it's not just the libertarian. Well, okay, so let's say I
but it
go
won't
down
make
to
anything less addictive.
sure,
And
but let's say I go down to Birch.
you better be able to have plenty of rehab centers funded.
Let's say I go down to Birch and I say I want to get my junk, man. And Birch, he's a nice guy, He's like, "All right, this is the measured amount. Now come into the back room. I've got a nurse on staff that's going to administer it to you."
Who's going to drive you home?
And she's also, the back room's a flop house, whatever. And
That's
also
the world I want to live in. Well, that sounds
she's
like
also-
San Francisco.
She's
actually.
also packing Narcan.
You do live in that world.
If you want to do away with the overdoses, that is the world. Portugal proved that's the world.
If you overdose on drugs and die, you're no longer in the system, and you
Sure.
don't have to be cared for.
Sure. Now,
Yeah,
what if you
that's-
overdose and die and you leave behind,
What if you quit making that noise?
and you leave behind maybe a pregnant wife with 3 kids? How's the system faring then?
Then someone of very low sexual marketplace value can swoop in there and
Sure.
take
but
advantage of that.
how's the system faring?
It's not doing well because that single
it's
woman
not.
with 3 kids is making about $80,000 a year when you add food stamps and you add
Sure.
insurance and
Sure.
you add child care.
It's a total cost on the system.
Thing is I
Now,
don't think legalizing
what
drugs
if-
is
What if
the
you
answer.
overdose and die under my system and Birch carries insurance to cover that? Maybe a little payout for the mom to keep her on her feet for a spell.
Well, that's what they do for us in the military. Like our wives are like, "Yeah, stay strong."
Yeah, what is $100,000?
Oh no, they get a lot more than that.
That's what I signed up for.
Women get a lot more than that when their husbands die.
I remember when I was in the paperwork I signed up for
They get more?
was
I
Oh, yeah.
thought it
$100,000.
was like 125,000 or something. Is that when you're killed
That's
in the
maybe
line
like
of
the
duty?
first payout. If you die on, so here's the thing: we never want to declare you dead first. We always say you're 100% disabled first, and then we declare you dead, because then you get disability plus anything that comes along with the death. And yeah, it's a crazy system.
He was in the Air Force.
Oh my, wait.
I was a medic in the Air Force.
But if you're in a coffin on a plane coming home, you mean someone is doing paperwork to call you?
Oh, well, the
100%
CIA first did the
disability?
paperwork.
not on weekends.
The CIA first did the paperwork so they could say we put 100 kilos of this in his
Oh my gosh.
Come on. No.
It's a true story. They did do that. What do you think Air America was?
Oh my gosh, that was a true story.
Well, it wasn't on my shift. I didn't participate with that. But I mean, I've seen it where like, all right, the doctor's not available on the weekends, so you declare him dead, or you declare him disabled on the weekday, and then declare him dead, and that way the wife gets more.
Oh, let's go through some
Oh,
questions.
Fred, my savior.
Who do you blame for? And Fred, I want you to stick around because we got a subject coming up that Dave disagrees with, but I want to hear your thoughts. Okay. Eric says hi, Holly. Fred says, who do you blame for?
Hi,
a
Eric. Thanks for saying hi to
fentanyl
us.
death? Who do I blame for a fentanyl death?
The user?
Oh, well, yeah. Ultimately, I think you have to. There has to be blame on the user.
A little bit of blame on our government for not securing the border.
I think there should be blame on
That's
whoever.
where it's coming
All the
from.
user.
Now it
Always
depends.
the user, of
If
course,
the-
the person chose to take it, but
If
if
the
the border
user-
was secure and it couldn't get through, that person wouldn't take it. And if China wasn't sending it over, but yes, ultimately it is up to the individual to make the decision to put it in their body.
When the dodo
Unless-
bird falls off of the cliff because he runs towards the edge,
Unless
do you blame the cliff
it's
or the
an
dodo bird?
innocent victim, like a police officer walking into a place and inhaling it
Yeah.
by accident.
At Birch's?
No, it's fentanyl. We're talking about who do you blame for fentanyl death?
I think the war on drugs, we lost it. I mean, even before Nixon died, when he started seeing the way that that they were changing the war on drugs, he
See
said
what
this is
he's
going to
saying?
be awful. For the first time ever, as we ask inmates being booked into jail, we ask if they will be detoxing. Inmates are saying they are injecting fentanyl. The problem with that is the margin between I'm high and I'm dead is, fentanyl is.
It's like
Fentanyl's a beast.
2,000 times more potent than
And I've heard
morphine.
they've got another like car fentanyl that's like even beyond that.
And at what point are these people just not worth saving, though?
This is the thing. If you're going to legalize crap, you've got to also be prepared to let them help themselves. Everybody wants to legalize drugs, like even in Colorado. Well, there should be rehab centers all over Colorado.
Oh, I don't disagree with you.
So that these people who are going to try it because it's legal, I mean, if you think about it, there has to be options for them to get help.
But if we don't have rehab centers, we can buy more armored vehicles for our
Okay.
police force. I would much rather have armored vehicles with cool weaponry instead of rehab centers.
No, see,
The different.
what you
it's
need
a
to recognize in that
different
sentence
fund right there.
is
I know where he's
you
going.
don't
And
have armored vehicles with cool weapons.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
The thing is,
So our sheriff's
state
department,
funds rehab centers. Our sheriff's department gets grants for certain.
our sheriff's
products.
department got a sweet MRAP, right?
Very sweet.
Yeah.
It is a beast.
I want to take it for a
I
ride.
like our sheriff. Let's say we get a different sheriff in 4 years from now.
How-
Of course. And let's say he's a bastard. That MRAP will definitely not be yours. It will be on your neck. It will be subjugating you if our new sheriff, opted for that.
Yeah, in the end, life is all about personal responsibility. You can't get away from that, even when
It
government
is true.
law
It is
dictates
true.
otherwise.
But how much corruption has entered into our legal system because of the war on drugs?
Plenty. But I think Eric's right. The war on drugs should be lowering the cost of insulin. And I have the thought on
You know
that.
how to lower
when
the cost?
when a drug is used with tax dollars to be invented in any one of these colleges by any one of these researchers using college or tax money, that drug should belong to the people of America that paid to have it
Sure.
developed. Therefore, that drug should be at cost to Americans.
There'll never be another drug invented again in that case. But I think what you do is you put a time limit on patents, and then the patent dies, and then it's open source.
I agree. Or you can
You
sell it
do-
to other
you
countries.
give them a
and
4-year
make a
patent.
profit.
You say you've got a 4-year, or you give them a monetary amount patent. Okay, you spent $100 million making this drug. You can recover $300 million. Once you've met that $300 million, the patent goes away. And so they can either say, we want to spread this out and dominate the market for X amount of years till we reach that 300 million, or we want to make it real quick and then it goes away.
Do you really think no one would invent medicine if we didn't have a patent system?
No way.
It's not invented anywhere else.
Oh,
What if we did
Germany
away with
invents medicine.
FDA and
Well, I don't know. I know they invented medicine. China
I mean, they
invented
invented
their own vaccine.
Yeah, sure they did. Okay. Yeah. Uh-huh. Ask them how that's going. Yeah. Uh-huh. Germany invented a delouser once upon a time.
Okay.
That's all we got to say. But no, all medicines are invented here.
That's
Like
because
98% of
we
it.
have innovation is still being allowed to be done here.
Because
but you're
they're
right.
allowed to profit off of it.
Yes.
If
There is a
Germany was going to
capitalism.
invent a medicine, they would come over here to do it.
I don't know. I don't quite buy into that statement, but
It's just a fact.
If I was smart enough to cure cancer,
Uh-huh.
I would definitely.
Not be in the pharmaceutical industry looking at making dicks hard.
Viagra
That's your
is
first-
Viagra is
If I was able to cure cancer, I would probably whatever it costs for the drug, that's what I'd sell it for. I would do it just because I know it would save so many people.
Sure.
Now, of course, I'd have bills to pay and all of that, but if I was funded by the government in my research and I've got come up now, not to say that somebody wouldn't kill me for, curing cancer,
We don't need to talk about Stanley
That's that
Myers inventing the
conspiracy theory
the water
again.
car.
but what I'm saying is that when there's drugs that can help people, I think there are still people in the world that you can be a capitalist. You can put even a profit on a medication if you want, but it's astronomical right now. And there's also insurance policies these drug owners have to have in case the drug does side effects or kills someone and they have to take it off market and all of that. I understand that. There's a lot of expense that goes into that. But I think that anything that is invented in this country by tax dollars right away. Pharmaceutical companies have their own research labs and do their own inventions. Of course.
Anyone know the story of Viagra here?
it was a heart
The
medicine.
heart medication. Yeah.
Yeah, and the guy's like,
Let my
"Man."
heart be still.
The guy's like, heart feels fine, doc. And they said, oh, wait a second. And never again has it been proffered as heart medication because there's more money to be made in Viagra. Viagra is the number one moneymaker for all pharmaceutical companies. The number one. That's their profit margin.
I agree. With Eric, yeah, the drug lords, the prescription drug lords now are called the DEA, and they actually, for people who actually need pain medications and things like that, they monitor that, and they're ridiculous.
Here's the deal. I just want to say this. I want to say if we turned over all the money that we spend on clogging up our courts, how many, if you get, yeah, that's right, Fred. If you get your bike stolen and someone down the street gets popped with drugs, which instance is the police attention going to be on? They're going to go after the drugs. All the incentives are there. The feds give them money to go after the drugs. They get rebates to go after the drugs. They get to keep half of what they take to go after the drugs. It's a Ponzi scheme from hell.
Well, yeah.
But your bike being stolen, a citizen who pays the taxes and does all the upstanding citizen things and mows his lawn on Sundays, there's nothing there for that.
Well, if you were
Sunday's a day of rest.
if you were a militia captain, you would probably focus on using your resources for the bike theft.
Now
rather
let's
than
go to
someone who smokes
historical.
weed.
If I was a militia captain, I'd be feeding my troops those drugs because they fight harder. That's just history.
What would they be fighting?
Just whatever I'm fighting. Captain Butt Naked gave his, or General Butt Naked. I apologize, General. I
don't know what you're talking
He's a priest now.
know.
You don't know about General Butt Naked, who's now a priest? Interesting character.
Dude, best historical story ever. So after the Civil, or no, I think it was even before the Civil War. All these Africans that got set free, we're going to send you back to the homeland. We're going to relieve some stress, whatever. Humana. We send them back to a country called Liberia. They actually named the capital Monrovia after President Monroe, the president who was the president when they sent him back. And the first thing that these freed slaves did was enslave all the Africans that were there. So a civil war kicks off. This is 100 years ago, 120 years ago. The Civil War kicks off, right? It starts pretty hot and heavy in the 90s. And there's a general butt naked. They called him that because, you guessed it, he fought butt naked. And
Why?
he was also a cannibal.
Okay, so he was wearing like
Their culture is very dramatic.
No, he fought butt naked.
he's a native person.
If
If he's a cannibal, it's not like he's wearing a suit.
Oh, they're all black.
No, but I mean, is he like in a tribe where they don't live in homes like?
Oh no,
colonials?
Monrovia is a colonial type. What was? I mean, there was a civil war that broke that.
And he was a cannibal.
No, wait, hold on. In his defense, he only ate their hearts to get their superpowers.
That is true, including that 8-year-old's heart he ate.
It wasn't like that's what he was having for dinner.
It was his mother that converted him to Christianity after the war was over. Best story ever.
I don't know what I did or where or how we fell off the train.
And Fred,
I got dropped
it's not
off
that much
somewhere.
history. General Butt Naked is a priest alive today in Liberia.
I bet you could attend mass with it.
This was in the 90s. He's very apologetic for what he
Was
did.
it 1990s?
Yeah. Liberian Civil War.
Okay, so you're saying they set the slaves free 100-something years ago, and it took 100-something years to have the Civil War. Because you made it sound like the first thing they did.
I apologize
is they
for making
enslaved
it sound.
everyone.
Oh, that is the first thing they
Civil War
did.
started.
Oh yeah.
Well, the Civil War was between the blacks were trying to get their freedom from the
Kinda,
free blacks.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, there's
Look it up. General Butt Naked. Vice lets me down on almost everything they do, but their documentary interviewing General Butt Naked is not one of those letdowns.
I agree with Eric that we focus efforts on fighting meth and crack and lay off the Mary Jane. We already have established, I think, that medicinally, Mary Jane is
Yes.
Jennifer
Holly is amazing. She's one of my favorite human beings ever.
No, it's amazing she can tolerate us.
I'm not tolerating
And
you.
that also. And no, she is not. Okay. What if we took away from this criminal justice side and we said, let's try focusing on a medical and recovery side? Do you think that might be a worthy attempt?
I would love.
What if our courts weren't clogged up what if our courts weren't clogged up with this? What if our prisons weren't clogged up with this? What if our jails weren't
You mean
clogged up
with drug convicted?
Yes. And we had a medical system built up to try to make them into well-rounded people again.
No, you're just talking then about the people who are busted for using.
Sure,
We're
busted.
not talking about the drug lords, right?
But here's another thing.
They do.
What if we got everyone fixed and the drug lords had to start selling avocados like they did 2 years ago when they legalized marijuana?
That was rough times, man.
Did you hear about that?
Yeah, and avocados in Mexico were having a really hard time.
Yeah, because the drug lords ran out of marijuana money. I guess reporting word on the street is that when marijuana was legalized in Colorado, the left coast, and a couple other states, that the cartels in Mexico, because of that small action, I think it was something like 9 states or 8 states, lost 50% of their
It's
income.
California, Nevada, Colorado, and Seattle, like Washington, Oregon. And I mean, that's a direct line.
But because
from
of
the
that,
southern
because
border.
of just that small percentage, the Mexican cartels on the whole, on average measured out, lost 50% of their income.
Oh, poor baby.
But no, I want you to, if you want to hurt them, right?
I don't want to. The thing I don't want to hurt them if they think they're doing a business and it's marijuana, but at the same time, they're not just doing that. They are
I know, but
enslaving people. They are trafficking kids.
I think you're missing my point. Now, the bad news is
the border
if we did that,
on
the Mexican cartels or any cartels, not just Mexican. I'm not trying to do, but
that's where
I think they would. I think they would lean more into the human trafficking or something else. They would find another avenue to make money.
That's why I'm saying you seal the border, seal it tight.
Human trafficking doesn't just come here.
No, guns come across here. Terrorism comes across here.
Yeah.
Everything you
human
can imagine.
trafficking also goes other places than just
absolutely
here. And so that's the only concern. That's my big concern, is that those evils will still exist.
Well, it's
but
scary.
It'd be nice to hurt them a little bit,
Stop playing with them.
Oh, sorry.
Well,
I don't know why it's hard for society to wrap their mind around concept, but it is. It's really difficult for people they grew up in the war against drugs. This is what they believe. This is what they know.
And it's highly profitable.
It was a religion taught to us as kids in school, like climate change is being taught to kids in school right now.
Yep.
And
well, here you are standing up for it.
And the perfect example was when my dad was sick, and I said, the doctor's like, we can offer you marijuana in a pill, and he was like, I'm not taking that. I'm not. And I'm like, Dad, it can help you. It'll make you hungry. It might take away your pain, it might take away your nausea. But he's so set in his mind that it was illegal. And you're right. There's a whole generation of people that grew up, but then you get into the meth era, where that's a whole ugly monster.
Well, I like what Fred says here. As much of I don't take shit from offenders guy. Now, Fred is a badass dude that protects us from the bad guys. I'm fully in support of rehab. It works. And it may not work every time or the first time or even the second time. But I would rather have our courts freed up to deal with,
with drug cases,
to deal with property crimes, to deal with where instead of right now, I'll bet on the average day in any court, what is it? I would bet at least 25% is just drug related cases. Just clogging our courts up.
We used to have drug court.
It's corrupted our law enforcement. We still have drug court.
But in
corrupting
County,
our law enforcement system.
In Twila County, we were promised funding by the state to actually give our jails and some relief so that we're not stashing all these addicted people when their only crime is they bought weed or they had an ounce on them or whatever it was, that they had treatment options and they were seeking, they had adult AP&P checking on them. They had to go in and get tested every month and all of that. And all of a sudden that funding went away.
Fred just said, move the Mexican border 20 miles south, vaporize everything, and that 20 miles take possession of that space. Did shores. I think, honest opinion, we should conquer Mexico, make the president a governor, and just do it that way.
Well, I don't think we have to conquer him. Let's just invite him to be America, like Puerto Rico.
We proved twice that conquering Mexico is a relatively easy affair.
I'm saying we invite them to join to be the 51st state.
Hey, that's right. No.
What do we do?
Let's make them the 48th state.
Do you know how many Democrats?
And then we'll give the West Coast to Canada.
So you got to be careful when you invite a state into the republic, because
now
Mexicans are very socialist in mindset.
Mexico's a bad deal. I've been doing some studying.
Puerto Rico's not a state officially.
No, it is not.
But they are.
They would vote Democrat.
Protectorate. Now, I've been doing some studying into that. And it's interesting. It comes from the way Spain, the way the Iberian Peninsula maintained after Rome collapsed, is why everything south of that border is very kind of state dominant and always has been, and why it's poor as hell. Why when they claim, oh, the richest state ever, and it's like Magna.
Well, I think that there's also the threat of drug cartels that will actually kill presidents or bribe them.
They will.
Or kill local mayors and local governors.
They would.
Drug cartels are absolutely terrifying.
That's why I
and
want
you
to
do need a
kneecap 'em.
military to take them out.
Actually, I want to disagree with you there, Holly. I have a Airbnb staying with me from El Salvador. Now, El Salvador was overrun by MS-13 a few years ago, and this new president comes in, and at the current moment, there's no MS-13 in control of anything in El Salvador.
What did he do to maintain control?
Well, he stopped like George Floyding his police officers.
Okay, that's it.
Pretty much, yeah.
So they could. He told them they could shoot drug dealers.
Yeah.
On site.
Well, you don't want to mess with the police in El Salvador.
Would that work
Right.
in Mexico?
But that wouldn't work in United States, and it certainly wouldn't work.
But would that work in Mexico? Because right now,
You can't have a gun in
MS-13 is
Mexico.
just one gang. The cartels in Mexico have any two of the cartels are richer than the state.
Now, what if we had these letters? Have you ever heard of the letter of marque, first off?
Letter of marque, yes.
Can you explain what that is?
Privateers. It's where a king, generally the Brits did this against the French did it against the Brits. Of course, both, the Brits were notorious at capturing our sailors and, making them indentured servants, indentured sailors. But yeah,
But
it's how you make pirates.
I wouldn't call them pirates, but it's how you
They're called,
privatize.
technically, they're called privateers.
Aren't they
Privateers,
called-
correct. Now, with privateering, the dismantlement of the cartels, the governments and society knows where the drug dealers are. They know where their stashes are. They know where their treasure hoards are. If they let society get together, file a license to go hunting, and if they get 50% of the
I
booty,
like that.
If you were to tell me I could have 50%
say-
of the booty from XYZ cartel in Mexico, I'd get my friends together and I'd go get 50% of that.
I would
Cartels
argue
now. Those are like the guys that after the military they become, what are they called? They're
mercenaries.
mercenaries.
I
Yes,
would
correct.
argue that
So what you're saying is we would just make it legal. Hey, mercenaries, go take care of this drug cartel problem, and you get 50%. When how
Blackwater.
do we know some of those people aren't helping these drug
Call up
cartels
old,
and getting
Eric-
paid 60%?
call up Eric Prince and just give him a street address in Chihuahua and let him out. But no, I would argue the reason Mexico has a particular situation where the drug cartels are allowed to have such control is because they have banned guns.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When a society cannot protect themselves, they're innocent victims all the time. They'll be victimized all the time.
It's the ban on guns that has allowed them. But banning guns is a traditional South American and Central American thing because
It's
of
also in England and
because
in
of their
Australia.
Iberian worship.
And if you have violent cartels running amok, it also legitimizes and validates government interventions and authoritarianism.
I think it legitimizes the cartels. You go to northern Mexico, who's the government there?
We can't even go to Cancun right now because they're under threat of cartels.
Yeah.
They just recently
Who's the
killed one
government
of
in
their
northern
mayors
Mexico?
publicly.
Who do you think gets their taxes regularly in northern Mexico? It ain't Mexico City.
Yeah, the cartels they
They get their pay on time. And
Yeah.
I'll bet that if something happens to you, you don't go to the police.
so my friend
I'll bet
from El
if you
Salvador,
if you
let me
were
tell a
down there
story.
and you had a daughter kidnapped, you would go to the cartel.
Right, but you also have to have kidnap insurance they actually sell that in
Sure.
Mexico.
Sure. But I'll bet if
terrifying.
you were in Tijuana and your wife got kidnapped, you would have a better outcome going straight to the cartel.
Who could afford to go to a cartel for over human? They don't value human lives.
Sure.
Yeah,
but
they do. They sell them.
if you've got money,
I know that, but you
if
have
you've
to
got
have
money,
money.
but the police, you're not getting anything.
Right.
You know, you might
I
get.
want a vacation in Cancun too. But my husband reads the Cancun papers, and he has put a kibosh on our trip that we normally take because of the violence happening there. And tourists are getting caught up in the middle, and people are going missing. And I think there's no other city. I can't think of another city in Mexico that could be destroyed by loss of tourism like Cancun.
Oh
Because
yeah, there's nothing without it.
The cartels have stayed out of there for a long time because it was so profitable with tourism, and they didn't have the fear. And then they got in this governor who was like, we're not having this anymore. He had military walking the beaches. I have pictures of the military, and they shot him and his whole.
Have you ever heard
group.
of Peter Zeihan?
In the broad daylight.
Yeah,
They killed this man.
Have you heard of Peter
You're
Zeihan?
interrupting me.
I apologize.
So now that got out there, and then they don't want to report that. You don't read it in the news in the United States. So my husband, I'm planning this trip to Cancun, and he's getting Cancun news from our friends there, and he's like, we're not going there. I'm not taking our kids there. Now, Peter who?
Well, I watched a show on this, and the guy was
Yeah.
explaining what El Chapo, as bad as he was a businessman, cartel leader. He said, we don't do killings.
No.
We're in the business of moving drugs. That's our business. We don't do killings.
Yes.
That brings negative light on us.
But if something doesn't move properly, they were in
Sure.
the business of killing that something. Because
When we
that was
took out
a
El
loose
Chapo, his underlings aren't businessmen.
His underlings were the ones that were the killers.
And that cut loose. These killings aren't just happening in Cancun.
No, but
It's all over
Cancun-
Mexico.
And they're not just happening in his cartel. Apparently the Zetas are on their heels because there's a new cartel coming up underneath the Zetas that are killing the Zetas, which were the formidable cartel. They were the hard ass cartel, and they're getting wiped out. They're the Mexican special forces that started dealing drugs because, it's more profitable.
That's the thing. When you're sending in mercenaries to go handle something like that, once you're willing to kill for profit, you can also not kill for profit.
Hey, School of Americas, we make the best cartel leaders until someone else does.
Well, the British learned pretty quick. I mean, it didn't take the Revolutionary War too long to establish the American Republic. If you think about it, how long was the Revolutionary War?
What do you mean? What?
I mean, it was privateers that won
quick.
that.
No,
Yeah,
not even close.
the privateers kept that sucker alive until the
Not
French
even
could come in.
close. Not even close. Not even close. First, what won that is England was already at war
with France.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of drug them in, didn't we?
In England, they didn't
And
even.
Spain.
They really didn't even know they were in war over here because they had a big war going on off their shore. The 7 Years' War was so much bigger, and the wars that involved that over here was a blip.
But this blip was able to get a lot of revolutionaries
Sure,
to
and we got to
start the war here.
We got to appreciate the French ambassador that wrote back and said we were winning all the battles, just totally lying to the king, just lying to him. And that's why we got French troops over here. But I argue, I don't think England could have had a sustained victory over here regardless. I don't think they could have. We were too far away. It was a population that was born out of the Magna Carta, not out of some Asian legalist ideals or any of that. It just would.
Well, I would like to think that the privateers had a big impact.
Sure. I would like to think that I'm a handsome dude, but
I definitely think the privateers did. I think it all fought with illegal guns, and
if I can
stood
get
up.
50% of that booty down there in Mexico, I'm game.
Why
Actually,
don't
I
you
think
find that club then? Join it. I'm sure it's there.
Oh, I'm sure my
Problem.
government would throw me in a cement rape cell.
It depends. Join the CIA and they'll send you.
I wouldn't want to be involved with the government that way. And no, they won't send you because I think I think there's a cartel government relationship that helps keep the people in line.
what? Fast and Furious?
I don't know. I'm just overthinking.
Do you think that Fast and Furious was a ploy to arm the Sinaloa?
I think it was one of the stupidest ideas ever created.
But do you think, because it did, it armed that cartel right there across from
It killed one of our
Texas.
border agents, in fact.
Oh, come on, we're just chattel. I mean,
Just one.
Our government is very
know
pleased
of.
with us dying. Anyways, do you think that it was to arm the Sinaloa to just give them an advantage to kind of swell? What do you think, Fred?
Honestly, Fast and Furious, and still nobody has been in trouble for that. Nobody.
Hold on, what?
In fact,
A government person did something wrong and he's not being held?
a president.
Yeah, but that's
President-
Obama. He's the golden child. He's our, they say he's our first black president, but I think that was Bill Clinton.
They used to say that.
You know what the best part? This is the best part. Is that up until what? 1836, Mexico was a first world country, comparably, and we were a backwater.
I remember the Alamo.
And we invaded them twice. But you know what caused the Alamo was a Mexican Civil War. Mexico slipped into a continuous civil war. And that's what Pancho Villa was one side of the Civil War that was our friend under one president, Monroe, and then our enemy under the next, and then our friend under the next, and our enemy under the next. It's crazy.
It's because our government keeps getting involved outside of our own borders. And I don't think we're cattle. I think we're people, and we're all important, and our souls
Okay.
matter. And this is why I'm so irritated that our border is wide open. When the president of Mexico is asked, what happens if someone from Honduras or from Ecuador sneaks into Mexico? Are they allowed to stay and get jobs? No, we send back them. That's what he said. We send back them. We don't let people stay here. And that was in an interview ironically, at the same time, why he's pissed that Trump wanted to build the wall. And the person just happened to ask, well, what do you do with people who come to your country illegally? And he said, we send them back.
Yeah, here if you're it all depends on what race you are. Like certain races are geared towards Republican votes and certain races are geared towards Democrat votes. Like Cubans, I love to watch the Democrats push the Cubans back. But they're all like, yeah, Mexicans come in here because 70% of all Mexicans vote Democrat.
But that started to change, especially what people of our age don't, or people now, Democrats and Republicans now don't realize. Yes, we are a country of immigrants, but we came through that one door, that open door at Ellis Island. And what they did there is that you gave them your name, you had what job you could do. They tested you for diseases, and they told you, once they knew what your skill was, you were let in. And you had to learn a skill, and they wanted you to learn English so that you could function. And before you know it, everybody's wanting to come here because we had religious freedom, and we had the Constitution. We had we had a society of free people, and that's what we still should have. We should still have an Ellis Island type entry for any immigrant that wants to move here, because we need immigrants in this country. Some of them are incredible business owners and innovative, and they're incredibly smart and amazing doctors and amazing, they're great with technology, and we need them just as much as we need babies to be born that I want to be born. What bothers me is the fact that, yeah, when you're judging people by how they're going to vote to let them in, that's not people.
Yeah.
That's disgusting to me.
That's the political game. I mean, it's a numbers game.
I
and
think
that's the way life is.
if we want to control that, we need private property rights.
Except for those gun stabilizing stock things. We have to get rid of those.
Private property.
I
This is
don't
the
even
way you
own
do
one,
it.
but now it's like all of a sudden I want to.
I know, right?
I would show you one, but I don't own one either.
That boating accident, didn't you lose your bump stocks and your
Oh,
strap thing?
would you
and your-
believe it? So I remember during the big Mexican the big caravan coming through Mexico,
Which one? There were a few.
the big one under Trump, where it was all anyone talked about for a while. Do you remember when the Tijuana president made red hats and they said, "Make Tijuana great again"?
I don't
During
remember.
that? Well, there's a picture of it.
I do remember when they agreed to hold all of the people in the caravan in Tijuana. The deal that Trump made, they don't come across, they stay in Mexico and then give us time to funnel through. That actually worked.
That was a happy day when he come out wearing the "Make Tijuana Great Again" hats. I think he did it as a jab towards Trump because Trump did force them to be held in Tijuana, and it did upset the Tijuanan economy a little bit.
Well, and Fred's right. You can take a look at it from sex traffic perspective alone, and that's enough. And that right now, I mean, there's more slaves in the world than there's ever been in history.
That's the one time where I'm okay with going after the end line consumer is in that sex trafficking and child abuse. I have no issue.
What about
with,
the gang members who are buying guns?
Sure, I want to go after them as well, but I really want to, when it comes to the child abuse and the sex, like a drug user, I don't really want to, do what China did at the end of the Boxer Rebellion with the people who would purchase a person to abuse them. I've got no sympathy.
I don't even think you have to use anything after purchase a person. Purchase a person, period.
Yeah.
And the fact is that
Well, I mean, if you're buying their freedom, kudos, but purchasing a person to abuse them,
and the United States has the worst abusers there are, as far as the porn industry and
I don't know. There's still like Dubai in the Middle East, and it's a pretty heavy rock you're lobbing there.
Yeah. I really don't think we're the worst country in the world. I think there are far worse.
And China's got that. They don't have
the
enough
most-
women, so we know that they're probably going pretty.
Yeah, but you don't know what's happening in China. You'll
That's
know
a
what
good
they
point.
let you know.
It's probably bad.
That's a good point.
Well, there's bad slavery. We know kids are slaves in China.
Mm-hmm.
That's noted.
Well, what about the Falun Gong? They're slaves because their religion has them live a clean, healthy lifestyle. And if you just happen to,
Did we just lose?
I don't know, we might have. No, it's kind of gone. Anyways, the Falun Gong, because of their clean lifestyle, they just happen to be, the on-call hearts for those emergency heart surgeries.
Ugh.
Yeah, we do live in a world where that's a thing now.
Fred, my dad took my brothers and I, when we were very young, to Tijuana a couple times. And that was a huge awakening.
I
for
try
me.
to go to Magna monthly just for that.
Would you be nicer to Magna?
So talking
Oh,
about
West Valley, sorry.
so Jared, talking about personal responsibility.
Yes.
That seems to be the theme of the show.
Okay.
We have a 31 point something trillion debt coming due.
Uh-huh.
We got a population of about 331 million people in the United States.
400 million.
I think it's like 337. Who knows? But
You got to add the people that we don't count.
well, let's keep them coming. That just lessens my tab.
So
Spread the wealth.
let's say 331 million people go out to dinner and then the tab comes back due at 32 trillion. What's the right thing to do?
That's a tough question.
How about before everybody goes to dinner, we decide where we're going to dinner. So we know what it's going to cost beforehand.
Unfortunately, you're born where you have dinner.
Here's the rough thing we're looking at is the majority of that debt is due to the Federal Reserve, which has a Dutch rudder handshake with the government. The government's not going to give up the Federal Reserve because the Federal Reserve empowers the government. And the Federal Reserve is definitely arm in arm with the government because, they empower each other.
Not if the economy's just
So if we backed out and said, we're not going to pay this debt, the Federal Reserve's still going to get it because the government's going to ensure that that's still underwritten. So, yeah, we might go back on some of the debt we owe to foreign countries, things like that. But, I mean, how much of the debt would go back to just regular Joe Schmo bondholders that bought it when they were a private in the Army 30 years ago?
what would happen if America filed bankruptcy? I mean, this is what they're scaring us at. They always do this every time it's a debt ceiling, and
it doesn't
Republicans are holding it up. Why is there never a discussion that our defense, just the money we spend on defense alone, is so astronomical compared to every other country, and yet they can lose $230 billion somewhere, or we can leave $80 million worth of products sitting in Afghanistan.
Well, it's not just
But
that.
we have to fund them, and we can give $100 billion plus to Ukraine.
Yeah.
When that is all unchecked, and then you're going to tell us we're hitting this debt ceiling. You guys, we need to raise the debt ceiling. I'm sorry, in my house, I don't have that option. I don't get to call up someone and go, I'm going to need more money because, I want to get a facelift. And it's just not enough. And my kids have to eat, and that's not normal. And yet, as our government, because it's not their money,
I would argue this Ukraine deal and all this flooding money around the world, like when we bought the transgender studies in Pakistan 2 years ago. I would argue that's a way to bolster the dollar too. The more dollars you send out into the world, the less liable it is for people to back away from Bretton Woods, because they've got all these dollars they still want to spend. And they know if they back away from Bretton Woods, it'll collapse the dollar, and then they've got paper. So they're going to, we'll keep spending the dollars because we've got a lot of them. We promise we'll try to, they're in their meetings without us there going, we're going to try to spend them all this year. And then sure enough, a new budget comes out and Pakistan's over there, Allah Akbar, we'll spend all of these dollars this year. And then 6 months into it, we dump another 40 million in their lap on, teaching them to, train dogs to walk backwards or whatever fucking bullshit we're spending it on.
What bothers me, we have states that have to have balanced budgets. Can you imagine if Utah did this? If we didn't have a balanced budget?
Yeah, we'd look like California.
Yeah.
Go on.
But I'm saying
states don't even have to have balanced budgets.
But well-run states do.
States,
Texas, Utah, for example.
States who have a populace who demands that have balanced budgets.
That's what I'm saying. People that demand it, red states mostly.
States aren't required by any law or legalism
But legally, their Congress is supposed to have a balanced budget. Is supposed to have a budget, but they don't.
Is that an advantage or a disadvantage?
Yeah, legally, Congress isn't supposed
it's an advantage.
Isn't supposed to infringe on free speech. How did that go with Twitter? Legally, Congress is supposed to defend the government from coming after our firearms. How's that going? Legally, Congress...
Free speech, the government didn't have to do anything. They just had to make the tech guys, the private industry, put...
Sure, and that was adjudicated in I think that was 28 that they couldn't do that. 1928.
There's so much...
Also, they were supposed to... I don't know. We're supposed to have private property.
It's never...
What do you pay every year?
Yeah, you never get to own your property.
We rent our property.
Yeah, we rent it from the government, no matter how long we pay for it.
Therefore, we are chattel.
I love that word, chattel.
That's it. Thralls.
Disposable male chattel.
We are thralls. Yes, you and I both had to. You know what the best part was? I was in the Army when I signed up for selective service.
Are you serious?
I joined the Army at 17.
Okay, well, that
Isn't
makes
that
sense.
kind of hilarious?
Now that I think about it.
You probably were too.
I think the bottom line is we have an amazing country because of the individuals that are here.
Hey,
But our government
Fred has a good point. He says,
needs to check.
God bless America. It's still the best country in the world. You know what? You are right, Fred. As screwed up as we are, we're better than everywhere else.
I mean, I would still say Liberland is better than America
How-
if you can get the Croatian occupiers out of it.
How insane is that? That we're better than, we're screwed up. We're fucked up beyond all recognition. FUBAR. You guys may have seen that word around. That's what it means.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we're still the best thing out there. Or snafu.
It's well, we still have
You know what
hope.
snafu is?
And but we also our country still has, and I don't. This is just me, but I still believe God is part of this country. I believe this is God's country, and I think there's enough people. I just don't know when they're going to get tired.
God
and they're
took a
gonna
120-year nap. I hope he wakes up soon.
I think the people are going to get enough, and they're going to start. You know, if we had 50 states with governors like DeSantis and Abbott.
Oh, here's the
and
big question.
Kristi Noem. If we had 50 states run by governors like that, the federal government wouldn't need to even exist.
I've got a big question.
Tell that to them.
So here I want to end
Couldn't
this.
get 50 states to elect those type of people because of the liberal agenda.
When I flew back, I kissed the ground. I'll bet you did. I'll bet.
Where'd you fly to?
He went. He took his kids to Tijuana
You
to show them how
flew?
good it was.
But you flew into Tijuana?
And then he said all his kids remember is they had braids. I've been
Oh
reading
my gosh.
them.
I was chased by my dad says don't give them money because people were begging for money. And I had bought a biscuit or something and I gave
Chased by a donkey.
change to a little boy. And before I know it,
They all come
I
running
have
at
like
you.
15 kids surrounding me. And that is sad. We watched a woman give birth in the street in Tijuana and offer her child.
It's like a damn maturation class down there. Here's the question.
No, that to me is devastation, and I want better for those people.
Oh, so do I.
And the problem is, there's no way.
I'm going to tell you right now, as a person who works in the trades, I love Mexican people. I think they're earnest, they're forthright, they're hardworking.
I do too.
You know. But anyways, here's a question. Okay, so.
Oh, he was in mission in Sweden.
Oh.
And isn't Sweden supposed to be paradise? Like
sure. Sure. How much does it cost to buy a car there? Fill us in there, Fred. Anyways,
we can't buy a car.
I think you got like a 200%
house.
tax. Some shit like that. It's insane. Anyways, okay. So we're running up Republicans. Holly, Holly, our effervescent Republican chair for the county. We're coming up on 2024. And we've got two kind of forerunners coming out of the Republican Party. Democrats have dog shit. The Democrats have a president right now whose ratings only beat his vice presidents. Yeah. And then he's got a transportation secretary that seems like the Democrat machine keeps wanting to move into position.
But every time
his incompetence gets the airplane shut down, the train shut down. I'm telling you, that guy is a monkey fucking a football. That's all he is. Buttigieg. But
he's still better than the press secretary.
Are you sure?
She's hilarious. Just watch her press conference.
Hey, affirmative action hire Barbie is outstanding. But
Barbie.
Now, the Republicans have these two front runners. We've got the Dawn and we've got the DeSantis. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that I have been a Trump supporter I wasn't a Trump supporter when I voted for him the first time. And then, of course, I was an avid Trump supporter when I saw what he had done. And my family personally was in way better shape, financially, with our schooling, with I don't know, the crime was less. It was just a lot better nation and under Trump, and I was happy to vote for him.
I felt safer too.
Did you?
Well,
I did.
yeah, and I don't see visions of nuclear clouds in my dreams when I was.
I mean, I felt
Trump
safer.
administration.
I also felt like he was ready to do. I think what he was doing was unmasking the Republicans and the Democrats that were doing damage to the country, which is why our own Republican Senate and Congress didn't back him, and why he had to sign so many executive orders that were erased within a second of him not winning. So the other thing, though, through those 4 years, it kept CNN in business, MSNBC in business. It was all
It didn't
Trump
just
all the
keep
time.
them. It made them.
It made him.
They
Absolutely.
were drowning. They were getting ready to close shop.
And they still,
And Twitter.
right.
Twitter was like 2 months from shutting down.
They still kept bringing him in and bringing him in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I did not love that. I do not love the fact that Donald Trump trusts certain people, and then he's surprised when they stab him in the back. I wish that he, Fauci,
Bolton.
Fauci, the second that somebody like Fauci says something to the president as his advisor over this pandemic, and then the president repeats it, and then the next second you see Fauci saying, well, that's not true. The president is, what he's saying is not true.
Mm-hmm.
That he'd have been fired that second if I was the president.
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, that's just, you've got.
He should have been. But yeah,
you've got
I
this.
agree.
So now you've got Trump surrounded constantly by scandal. Going to come in.
And it
then
kind of
people-
handicapped him.
Yeah. And then you also have the question of the election integrity in the 4 states.
Hey, it was the
And-
most what do they say? The most popular 100% whatever election.
Yeah. So when you've got that happening, and so now you've got Americans going, wait, okay, if Trump runs again, is this going to be another 4 years of never-ending Trump bashing? Is our Republican Party going to back him? And half of our party thinks that he needs to just go away because of his pompous bullying that he may do. Because when we have to watch him, the thing that turned me off with him as a voter was watching him in debates. I like his logic, but I didn't like the him telling Ted Cruz that he's little Ted or whatever, when Ted Cruz is talking about abolishing the IRS.
But that's how Trump won. I mean,
Yes.
everyone got a nickname.
True, but Trump won because there were enough people tired. There were enough people tired of the politician.
Yeah.
And now Trump is one. Now he has been one.
Uh-huh.
But now he's got a history now.
A little baggage.
That baggage that people are trying to, regular people aren't reading into all of these little signs that we see with the FBI. They know the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago, but people still think that he had nuclear secrets he could be selling to China, or they still think that the dossier is real. I mean, because people don't take the time to just give it a second and hear the story out.
They want it.
Well, true.
I think that's people.
But even Republicans who supported him in the beginning started to lose support of him because of his arrogance, like Fred was saying.
Yeah.
Now you get someone who's less harsh, like DeSantis, who does not said that he's going to run, but already Trump is starting the bullying tactics with him at a time that was so unnecessary, right before his governor race. To me, it was a huge, ridiculous move.
I think it ruined Trump, and it ruined his announcement. When he came out and did that announcement, I think it sanctimonious and all that.
Yeah, to me, that was a low blow.
I think that, well, not a low blow, because we expect that. We actually want that from Trump, sadly. But I think Trump came out after that.
Who had been the hero of the COVID pandemic.
When Trump came out after that, and that announcement show he did was low energy. He didn't bring the fire he had.
No.
And I think the DeSanctimonious took away from that.
I absolutely agree with you. It to me, it irritated me. And as much as I liked his policies, I think I like DeSantis' policies in Florida, and I like what he's done. If he did decide to run, I would definitely be doing my research.
That's a tough one.
And a lot of Utah Republicans could stomach DeSantis where they can't stomach Trump. They
That
won't.
is true.
They won't stomach
That
Trump
is true.
again.
But if there is a Trump diehard, they're Trump through and through.
Through and through, right?
That's crazy. But what about
Then it splits the vote, and
what
we
about
lose.
the argument of DeSantis? I think as a state as populated as Florida, with the demographics it had to be a bulwark there, I think that also aided the message. Where South Dakota with Nome, I mean, come on, she's got 3 more people than Wyoming.
Yeah.
So she couldn't be a bulwark, and that's my one concern, because I do believe governors are more important than presidents, especially when you get an overall.
That's what the
kind of national
Constitution
message.
believed too. That it was states' rights first.
What's this word you speak of?
Do I need to get it? I'll get it.
You have one of those pocket constitutions.
Doesn't everyone?
I
For
should
their
get
gun?
one. I back when it used to mean something, I guess I should. I don't know.
I've got a few of them, but
I've heard of it.
yeah.
I think
I don't think it's as important as you have one as it is our elected officials have. Just
Well,
say that.
here's the
Even
thing.
though you are an elected official.
I am, and I'll be up for re-election actually
ya?
in a couple of months.
Ooh.
Do you have competition yet?
I don't know.
You're going to have to come back on. Give your pitch to the people.
I will.
Do you ever encourage people to run against you?
Dave,
I don't think I discourage it. But for me, I think that I have served my party well in my terms, and I've served this.
I think
my end of
everyone.
my third.
And I would say more than just served your party, but you've served the county.
I appreciate that, and I absolutely love the work, and I love the people that I get to talk to, even people that don't agree with me. I love that they feel open enough to share with me their disagreement, because at least then I can understand them, because Republicans do not fall in line and just toe the line like Democrats do. And I mean that. I said it in a prior show. We are all individual thinkers, which that's what makes us, a little more difficult to handle and to get on board. But it's the Romney debate all over again. Half of our county would vote for him again, and the other half, you can't even say his name. And yet I want to have that half of the county that wouldn't vote for him again joining the others and at least coming up with something, someone, some way to compromise on. We've got to figure out, how do we stay together? Because it's that separation that will cost us seats. What does bother me is if we do get this Congress in and they do nothing, and all this work that we have done as a group and as a party, and it's not just me. I mean, there are my vice chair, Alan Layton, and Mike Stewart, and Whit Cook is our newest member, our treasurer. We plan fundraisers, and we do convention, and I'm a delegate, state and county. I go to many, many events on behalf of the county party that I don't have to go to. I go there because I want to constantly be in view of those politicians that have told our delegates their promises. And I want to make sure that they remember Tooele County. And that's been something that I go to things that you guys would just probably snore at. But to me, it's passion for me. I love politics. I love the debates. But I like to also work with candidates, even candidates that I maybe don't agree with. At least they know I'm right there, and I want to hear what they have to say, and I want to praise them when they've done something good. Constitutional carry. I mean, did we think we'd see that out of Governor Cox?
No, that is an interesting one.
I was so happy
Well,
to
do you think
see
that's
that.
just? Do you think Cox was a supporter of it, or do you think that the vote was just so high on the Utah floor that he just had to go along because a message was sent?
Cox Spencer is a I want to just say, I've known Spencer for a long time.
Question
And
wrapped
he's
in an enigma.
he's a small town boy. He grew up right outside where I went to Snow College, and one of his best friends was one of my best friends, and he the nicest guy as long as I can remember. He's not a fighter, and he's not a bully.
Mm-hmm.
And he does want to represent his people. What I think happens, though, when you get to that seat, you don't get to be the hero that you want to be to your people, because half the people hate you.
Yeah.
And you also are hearing more sides of more arguments
And
that
the other
perhaps,
half is split on whether they like you also.
right. And, I just have to say, I think that goes for all politicians. And
Yeah, what's written on Thomas Jefferson's tombstone?
what's that?
It started the Virginia University. Definitely nothing about president.
What?
He didn't write anything about being president on his tombstone.
Oh,
It's just about how he started a university.
well, I think that Jefferson had a lot to be proud of, and I think a humble man is also a well-respected man, and sometimes they're hard to find. And when in this day and age, I am in awe at people who run for office that really are humble and really are good. I think it's hard to find people like that, because in this day and age, there is a swamp in DC. I truly believe that Mike Lee has somehow been able to get through that swamp and try to do what is best for Utah, but also what is best for America. I think that Ted Cruz has tried to get through that swamp. Now, I don't know Ted Cruz personally, and I don't know Rand Paul personally, but I think those are three people that have national attention for the stuff they've put forward. Their own party has put down. Their own party has put down, yet it would put the Senate back in check. It would put responsibility and accountability back on themselves. And they're putting those bills up, and they're getting bashed by their own party, made fun of. Now, I know with Senator Lee, I mean, there's Democrats that would speak very highly of him, even behind his back. He's a nice guy. He's a good guy. He'd do anything for you.
Taller than he looks.
He's a hell of a debater, and he knows the Constitution inside and out. I mean, and you get these good guys trying to do something good, and then they get thrown into this place where, I mean, if I had my way, I wish every elected official was like followed around with cameras 24/7, like a reality show. So we get to see them in their meetings when big corporate come in.
I imagine
we get to see those deals.
I imagine Bill Clinton's camera would be the top ticket on Pornhub.
But I think
that was my campaign promise when I threw in my independent for against Christian Gillibrand in New York.
Yeah,
I was going to wear a body cam.
Yeah, but imagine Bill Clinton.
If that happened,
he would be like nonstop. He'd be like that. OnlyFans.
Okay, can we move to my deal?
Oh yeah,
because that's just terrible. Okay, so
just
if everybody got the eyes to see what it looks like when a politician is meeting with lobbyists. I mean, lobbyists alone are trouble for the American people, and also needed. And so I think that it would be nice to have some, form of, let's follow them around and see what an average day is like, in the Senate. I think people would be really surprised, but I think that I think you could drain a swamp really fast that way. I think with presidents too, but not, I mean, there are some deals that the American people should have no access to, but watching Ted Cruz stand up and say, I think we should have, I'd like this bill to get put forward to McConnell. And what? You're asking for term limits? What are you, crazy? This is crazy. And he won't even put it to a vote. When Rand Paul brings up the bill that he wants a 1-page bill so the American people can read it, so that my people and I myself can read it, so I have a day to process it. And a 1-page bill, that makes so much sense. Yep. Now we don't have pork and all these bills just thrown in to the point where who was it? What's the guy from Florida that was able to put in release the fact that aliens exist?
Yeah.
He snuck it in. Gosh. What was Trump's nickname for him?
Oh, I forget
Rubio.
Yeah, Rubio.
So Rubio gets to sneak in that you're going to tell the truth about aliens to Americans into a bill that's this high. That's the ink was still wet when it came into the Senate office.
The bill was 5,000 pages long, and they had, I think it was 21 hours.
Yeah, and
not all of
enough.
them, just the first ones, the first to get the delivery. Some of them only had like 18 hours.
And Mike Lee had said, and so did Rand Paul, we are not voting for a bill we can't read.
Mm-hmm. But the issue is that's the senators doing that, and they're still knocked out. Even our Congress gets it. And so when I read through the stuff that they were holding McCarthy hostage over, I loved the Holbein Act. I love that because that gives the Congress some teeth. That if you've got a bureaucracy like the FBI overstepping bounds, they go to the head of the FBI and they say, your budget's cut in half. Your paycheck is cut in half as of today.
That's how it should be. But when you have a president who actually uses the FBI.
But I think the FBI would be like, imagine the FBI, the head of the FBI saying, I ain't doing this. They're going to cut my paycheck in half. So I'm not sleeping in your bed and my wife will kill me if I do this.
I don't know what that means.
That means they'll be hitting him in his personal pocket.
Oh, I see. I didn't know about your wife. And
yeah, his old lady's not going to want him coming home with half a paycheck. What do you think could happen to Dave if he came home with half a paycheck?
To have that happen, the Constitution only will work if the people are good
and educated.
I mean, Ben Franklin said that. A moral society, this will work.
Yeah.
And do we have a moral society?
And then he went to France and was just a man whore.
Well, they kept the voting pool really thin. I mean, it was like you had to be white, you had to own property.
And you didn't have to be white in all circumstances.
You had to be a man, I think, too, right?
You had to own property. Yeah.
You had to have skin in the game, basically.
You had to have something to lose. De Tocqueville wrote about it. And he said, once this democracy, I'm paraphrasing, but once it comes to fruition, this country's over.
Well, it's illegal for us to make sense now in Congress, right? So,
and we're not a democracy.
I gotta go use that.
We're not a democracy. We're a republic.
Hey, he's using the bathroom. You can say something, Holly.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
The floor is yours, right?
Why don't you? I feel like you don't talk enough.
Do you want me to say something? I have something to say.
Okay, let's hear it.
So we were talking about that topic of personal responsibility. And we talk about how Republicans want to balance the budget. They want to pay their dues, right? They want to pay their debts.
And they also want to shrink budgets and get rid of the excess to cut the fat.
How much sacrifice should we as citizens be expected to make to do that? So what if I was legally allowed to run for office and I said, you know what, I want to pay the debt. And since you guys went to dinner, the bill's present, you're going to have to pay. And I said, look, no more, let's see. So dead people get away with this all the time. They're like, they just hand out their property to the next person in line and they escape they check off the blue marble, right? So what if you could only pass down $25,000 of inheritance when you die until the debt was paid? How much favor would the average citizen have towards recognizing their responsibility to pay the debt at that point?
I don't think, here's the thing. I don't think it's fair. The citizen is taxed every which way from Sunday, including on their death.
Mm-hmm.
And yet our money, we have no control over what it's getting spent on.
True.
Zero. So it, in fact, isn't our debt. It is the government that has created it. The problem is they've also created all these programs that Americans are using. So what if instead of that we say, here's what we're going to give up. From now on, welfare. We will have a welfare system. It will be a temporary system. It'll be 3 years. And you will have, what you need for 3 years to get on your feet. We're going to have a work training program. We're going to have healthcare options for your kids. What welfare is now, there's just going to be a limit to it. And we're also going to slim down our military budget until our military can figure out what the hell it needs. Because under Obama, look what happened to our Navy. I mean, we had so little of it. We had to build it back. And yet they were still missing money. We have so much unaccountable money in Ukraine. Is that yours and my problem? I mean, we can't afford gas because now they've decided that they're going to go to war over gasoline when that's usually, aren't we the Republicans that want to take oil from countries? Well, they're doing the opposite, right? As American citizens, we can't be responsible for what they're doing in DC with money that they don't see they have no connection to because they're getting paid. If they don't hit that debt ceiling and if someone's going to suffer, I say you don't pay those up there not doing their budgets. Every single department in government has a budget. And if they can't limit that budget in some way, cut the fat in some way to free up, our state did it. We have a surplus. Texas has a $33 million surplus. And what does that president say? Or what does the governor say? One of the things I'm going to do with this money is I'm going to give it back to the people on their property tax.
How would it be?
Can you imagine a president saying, hey guys, we've balanced our budget and we have a surplus of $200 billion. So we're going to send checks out to everybody that filed taxes this year. And I mean, not because we're going to print checks for votes. It's because we have a system where you can go through and see where every budget is from every department and where we've cut. And oh my goodness, look, we can pay our bills and we have all this extra money. And instead of sending it to Ukraine or to do test rabbits in Taiwan or put lipstick on a pig, we're going to send it back to you so that you guys can put your kids in college who can be the next doctor or the next computer designer or business innovator or even politician. But putting it back to us, I don't think the citizens, this debt isn't on our shoulders. Because if it is, we're paying debt that they put on us 100 years ago.
We put them in
Before we were
office,
born.
Holly. We put them in office.
We put them in office since we were 18. So we can talk about the debt,
Well,
which has
some of
gotten
you
worse.
did.
Well, those who didn't vote actually are the worst ones.
Wait
Because
a second.
I will be responsible for the people I voted for and got elected, but for the people who don't vote, you're responsible for the ones.
Wait a sec. So if
It
I
did.
go into a restaurant and it's a fancy one, obviously a French guy, he's got a little mustache. He comes out and he sets a plate down in front of me with the little silver upside down bowl on top of it and lifts it off.
The guy can tell you anything about history in the whole wide world, but he can't tell you what the little bowl is that sits on top.
What's it called? I'll remember it for next time. Anyways, and inside that is a fresh, snapped right off dog turd. And on the other side is an old, dry, ashy one off the lawn. I ain't picking either of those. And that's why I don't vote.
Well, let's just say it doesn't matter if you pick; you still have to eat one of them. In reality, you have to eat one.
In
of them,
reality, I get to eat both of them.
pretty much.
But you know what? So do the people who vote.
All I'm saying is,
But no,
the individual
I agree
spirit
with you.
is we do have to encourage our politicians to get right down to it and start doing the budgets and start doing investigations. And there's so much that came off of the Trump era, and then the January 6 people who still haven't had trials and who still haven't had I mean, a speedy trial, which is also in the Constitution. Some people were just there and are still locked up. I mean, that's a whole nother subject for a whole nother time. But I can't think of another time in history other than maybe when during Japan, after Japan attacked United States and they put the Japanese in the camps here in Utah.
The internment camps, or the Rosenbergs that they put in jail in the upstart of World War I.
When is the last time this has happened where American citizens aren't getting fair
due process?
Due process, exactly.
Well,
I would
they were
say
Trump
that-
supporters.
I would say that happens all day, every day, but I would say that's because the war on drugs has kind of broken our judicial system.
This
But
is a political attack. This is
it is.
these people are being used.
They are
as
100%
pawns.
political prisoners.
If they were in any other city,
But
there would
Holly,
be
it was the
upheaval.
worst day since Pearl Harbor.
I still shiver.
When they call it out, they say Pearl Harbor,
and 9/11.
9/11,
D-Day.
the War of 1812, the meteorite killing the dinosaurs. It ranks up there. It's heavy stuff.
It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. I don't care if you're a drug dealer. I don't care if you're a child abuser. I don't care if you are innocent of all crimes but accused. You deserve due process.
We
Because
demand
that's
it.
the only way a world works is if you get your trial.
I agree.
And
Well,
these
If
people aren't
you give
even
them, if you give them a lengthy waiting time, sometimes they'll die off on you.
or if you don't
And then
feed
you
them
can just declare them guilty.
or if you put them in solitary confinement for 6 months, they go a little crazy and then when they finally do see a judge, they aren't deemed to testify. You know, Jim Jordan said we're going to release all of the tapes from January 6th. Hell yes. Release every single one. Let the American people remember. Because I remember watching the people parading through the Capitol and they were staying within the line, the carpet. They had flags. They didn't have guns. They had flags and they had signs and they were walking through there. And it was a horrible, horrible thing when the violence started. And I am the last person who ever wants a police officer hurt or attacked, ever. I also think that there were people in those groups. What's the gentleman's name that doesn't ever get talked about? That is actually, they have video of him all the time saying, let's break it, break the window, break the window.
Yeah.
And yet, why isn't he under the jail in D.C.?
Well, I mean,
Where's the FBI files about that?
FBI's got an FBI.
The FBI files about that day? They should be released, and we should know who was out at the Capitol that day. And also, where was Nancy Pelosi's documentation when she was asked by the President of the United States to have extra security on hand, and she denied it? National Guard denied it.
But the next day, she wanted M240Bs on all four.
Right, and she then surrounds it with a what? A fence, a wall. She
And
built a wall.
cruiser machine guns.
Well, originally, maybe she was just trying to keep the budget low.
Yeah, Nancy Pelosi was watching them.
I mean, if you give everybody like top-notch security every day, it gets expensive. I get that.
This is hilarious. Now,
Oh, speaking of Nancy Pelosi, and what happened to her poor husband? Why don't we have a body cam on that? Why don't we have a report on that?
Oh, you don't want to go there. It's a deep rabbit hole.
It is, right? But yet we can say everything that happened with the guy in Mississippi whose wife went missing. They know everything in one day.
yes, Fred says, on January 6th, I saw it on the news. I recognized Foltz, who I recognized as Antifa, who demonstrated in Salt Lake City. Yes, John Sullivan. We had him on the show. He was there. I don't mean to disparage John, but I had never talked to someone who elsewhere proclaimed such beliefs and then came on our show and folded.
Really?
Yeah.
He
Never
just
saw the John
he,
Sullivan
he
episode.
totally oh yeah, I
wouldn't
agree
watch
with
it.
you.
I didn't want to watch it. I think he's garbage.
I'm a radical, and he was like, "Oh yeah, free market, oh yeah," and then the very next minute, I think I think I think he's looking to make money off of clout, and I think that's all he's been doing. I don't think he carries any of his own beliefs.
Well, and it would be different if he was in here with a mob behind him. He'd be a big hero then.
Sure.
He'd stand up for his beliefs then. And that's
I
the
know,
thing.
and it'd be too bad I lost all them guns in that boating accident.
I know, it is. It's still sad.
I did want to talk to Fred about Houston, but we have to do that another time. But that Houston deal, it really burns in my mind because it goes back to, if you're going to carry a firearm, get some training. I don't care if you find free training. Find an old veteran, buy you something. But you better get some kind of training.
Like how to find the surveillance cameras and disable them and remove the footage and all those good things, right? Those are the kind of trainings.
Know how to handle that weapon so that you don't. One, I mean, you don't want to carry that on your conscience, a death through misfire.
Do we have? Are we running out of time?
No, we can talk all
Well,
night
I
if
think
you
then
want.
you should elaborate, because you're discussing the Houston shooting and the gentleman
The
who stopped
Houston
the robbery.
Taqueria shooting, where a guy's sitting in the restaurant with his lady, and a young man walks in. There's 6 or 7 different people in there eating, and he goes from table to table and robs them all with a gun. And then as he's walking out, I'm not going to show the video.
He's walking past the guy,
Yeah.
pointing the gun still at everyone.
Well, and as he's walking out, he's leaving the building. The patron draws his weapon and fires him. And if I remember, he shot him like 8 times, 8 or 9. But he fires 3 times. The assailant drops. And then he fires 4 more times while the assailant's on the ground. And then he walks over and picks up the assailant's gun. And as he stands up, what appears to me looks like he gives a sympathetic squeeze and shoots him in the head. And that's the one that's going to get him.
But I think we were discussing is that finger reaction and keeping your finger on the trigger, and that's why you need training to know. Like, I never put my finger on my trigger, and I learned that from Fred.
Yeah, part of the training,
training
when you train with firearms, you train to keep your finger off the goddamn trigger until you're ready to destroy the target.
But like in Houston, a jury of his peers may not be too keen with a person protecting themselves.
Well, yeah.
The other thing is that,
and he screwed up. He screwed up.
He did,
because
but I think
he
it was
did an unintentional trigger squeeze.
I would call it a manslaughter. If I'm his lawyer, that's what I would fight
Either
for.
way, he's screwed. He's screwed. He was a hero. He could have got off in almost any legitimate court, minus like New Jersey, New York, and any of the left coast.
Well, even the press was saying that it was a good shoot until video came out.
Until that sympathetic squeeze. And what I mean by sympathetic squeeze is he had his pistol pointed at the guy. He bent down to pick up the assailant's pistol, which turned out to be a toy, but he's still clear. Turned out to be a toy. And as he's standing up, I think as his quads engage, his finger engaged with him.
Right, because he didn't aim and do an execution
he
style.
Wasn't aimed. It wasn't like he walked up to him. And I think he gave a sympathetic squeeze, and man, it's going to screw him so bad. I mean, even the toy gun he could have got away with. He still had that, even with it being a toy gun. Yes, Fred is a firearms instructor.
Yes.
I can defend all his shots, but the last shot, particularly where he had retained the handgun.
But maybe he was already dead.
And it doesn't matter. The sympathetic squeeze, that's you showing you're not capable for what you were doing.
I don't know. If our society is really going to nitpick that, I think we're just so far gone.
Our society's going to look at like he's going to get revenge. And I'm going to put a bullet in the back of this guy's
That's how he's
head.
going to be adjudicated, that he shot him out of anger, even though he was already dead. that he shot him out of
Even
anger.
if the dead was dead or not. And I even said,
and
well,
it's gonna
what
be-
if there's guys waiting outside with guns and
Yeah.
this guy doesn't know that? But again, your finger shouldn't be on the trigger
That's right.
once you have the threat stopped. I
Yep,
learned that
that's right.
from
What happens if you go to the range and your finger's floating on that trigger the whole day?
I shoot you guys.
Mallory's going to beat your
Oh,
ass.
Mallory had me out a couple times because it was just finger up, finger up, finger up.
Yeah.
Again, I still think the range is a lot different than that situation.
Yeah, you're thrown in the moment.
Train as you
I
fight.
agree.
Train as you fight. You don't want to shoot your battle buddy. You don't want to shoot a friendly. You don't want to put your finger. I mean, you keep your finger off the trigger until your sights are on target. And I mean, you're
That's
going to
true, Fred.
stress messes you up. You hit some battle fatigue. You hit some tunnel vision. Your blood's being drawn into your core. You lose a lot of dexterity, a lot of control, a lot of feeling. That's why you train. Put your finger up on that slide. Hell, if you're dumb, Glock provides you a little groove to touch your finger on just for safety.
I know that groove.
You know, so keep your finger off the trigger. But I mean, you know, and that I think is what got it. And had that guy committed to muscle memory, that finger rests up on the slide, I think he'd be getting away scot-free.
And not only that, but he would be dropping the magazine and putting a new one in and holstering his weapon if he was if he was in the training I was in.
Scan and breathe.
Because if there is an additional threat outside, he would have been out of bullets to take that threat on.
Yes, he would have.
So having that extra magazine ready, I learned a lot, Fred. See,
Yep.
I was paying attention.
Fred's a good teacher.
Well, that guy's walking out alive, and the criminal is dead. So he did something right.
No, I agree.
I hope a jury sees it that way.
Yeah, but how would it be if he walked out a hero, but now he's stained?
He's only stained according to some
And
bureaucratic bullcrap.
I promise you, every trained individual across the nation is saying the exact same thing I am.
Because they weren't in his situation. You know what? There's plenty of soldiers out there.
Muscle memory.
There's plenty of soldiers out there that haven't had an encounter where maybe they slipped up on the trigger once or twice and they put a few extra bullets downrange or something when they're engaging. But the point is, we're so bureaucratic that I actually have to consider this bullshit.
Yeah.
So you're saying that there's soldiers who downrange might accidentally shoot a buddy and they walk away okay because they're downrange?
Well, probably more like collateral damage on civilian populations.
Oh, so we're supposed
I
to be
hate to
good
say
with
it
that.
happens to me in Call of Duty all the time.
Right?
I accidentally
Exactly.
kill people that I didn't mean to kill.
No,
all the time.
I'm telling you, that's why
Because war is hell.
Hey, this is just
with
my
me,
call.
you know,
if you're
I feel
gonna
you.
if you're gonna carry a firearm, seek out training. Training will get you started on that road to finding muscle memory so that you become a perfect shooter. You don't want to be a half-ass shooter. You don't want to be a weekend douchebag. You want to become perfect.
I'll tell you from my point of view is I don't ever want to be a shooter. I would never want to be in that situation. Training taught me that, there's a time and a place and you'll never know when that time is, but that muscle memory and that constant going over in your mind, and Mallory's voice is in my mind all the time. When I'm carrying, I always am a lot more in tune with my surroundings, where my children are, even in my house. When we're just having a lazy Sunday, I like to know where they are at all times. I know where my firearm is. It's never far. And I think that if I'm in a panic situation and my children are sitting at this restaurant and this man has a gun waving him in their face, I have the ability to stop him. And the second I get the chance, I'm going to unload my magazine on him, and I will have that muscle memory. I don't care if he's dead until he's got to be down, and he's got to have that gun away from my children, me, and every other innocent that is sitting in that restaurant. But I hope that I wouldn't accidentally shoot him in the head on video because I was shaking, because adrenaline makes you shake. And that's why I would be this guy's attorney and I would fight for innocence all day long, because just like with cops, police are in a situation like that. They get seconds, not even a second sometimes, to decide if they have to kill or they're going to be killed. And it's so quick. And when common people who don't have training as much as police have, I mean, police train often, probably could train more, right, Fred? Police can always train more. But it's not until you have that memory and when you have to make a life and death decision in seconds, and then you get armchair quarterbacks judging it in slow motion on video, it becomes this whole different world. Because my father was in a shooting and he had no memory at first. After he'd already talked to a board and did all this stuff to talk about the shooting, and he changed policy across the United States and the FOP, because after he left that meeting and he was in a shooting and he did kill the person, but we had to learn from the press that the guy had died. We had to learn from the press what witnesses were saying, because he was on paid leave. And the whole time he was just worried. What did I say? He's going over in his head. Did I do the right thing? He'd absolutely done the right thing. He'd saved another officer's life in the shooting, in the process, and they gave him a medal for that. But he made it so now when officers are involved in a shooting that a representative from the Fraternal Order of Police or someone goes in with them. They get to tell their story then, before it becomes all recorded. It's like having an attorney with them, because the shock they're in, it doesn't matter if you're a veteran police officer or if you have been just on the job for a little bit. It doesn't matter if you are a woman sitting in a restaurant or a woman walking to her truck and a man attacks you. That adrenaline shot, when you have the ability to fight or flight and you've got seconds and you've got a firearm, you're going to use it. And if you've got that firearm, you will use it to survive or to protect other people. And it's that armchair quarterbacking that happens after the fact that has people scared as hell to go into law enforcement or to carry a gun. This guy was a hero to this restaurant.
Sure, I'm just saying.
For days.
Could it have gone better? Yes, he could have saved that one bullet.
I'm not. You guys are missing my point.
Not missing it, because you're right. It looks
seek out training, because
terrible.
had he sought training that committed that finger to muscle memory to where when he's in tunnel vision, he didn't have to think about it. Right now, he would just be a hero.
Well, we don't know much about this guy yet, right? We don't know if he's ex-military or ex-law enforcement, or if he's just Joe Schmo who is a concealed carrier.
Could be any. And hey, I would say good on him. He fired 8 or 9 rounds, and all 8 or 9 impacted, even the one he didn't mean to.
That is pretty good. I mean, for Air Force standards, that's
3 feet away.
Hey, that's for police officers in a gunfight in an elevator. That's good.
Air Force standards is 3 feet. Yeah.
I just think you're absolutely right. Training is the most important.
Like
we hope we can.
You got to worry about touching him with the barrel and taking your pistol out of battery.
You realize if I ever get attacked, that attacker's probably going to be within 3 feet.
But I imagine you want to train to be just a little further than that.
Nah, sorry, man. If you're
Air Force, the plane goes down.
If the Air Force is attacking you, then you've made it through the Marines. You've made it through the Army.
No, the Air Force is usually there first. The Air Force and the Navy.
Don't they sit in rooms now with computers and mouses and this now in the Air Force?
Yeah. And coffee.
And coffee.
Lots of coffee.
Yeah, if the drone's messing with you, they haven't even declared war on you yet.
Well, I agree. Like Fred said, I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6.
I agree. And I am saying that guy should have shot. Even with the fake gun, even with him walking out the door. That guy should have shot.
Well, in Texas, it's legal, remember, to protect property.
Even here in Utah, I think that guy should have shot.
Mm-hmm. Property is life.
I think also that guy should have got training.
I agree. He should.
So that That because right now, here's what we're looking at. That guy had a good shoot. That guy had bolstered the right to constitutional carry. That guy had bolstered citizen can be responsible for the safety of the community. And then that sympathetic squeeze took all that away. And actually, now it weighs against constitutional carry. Now it weighs against citizen defense.
That's
now
true.
it weighs against all that. And that's why I'm saying get the frickin' training.
Get the training.
Even if you take the cheapest training out there, get some form of training, get some familiarization. Don't buy a gun and own it and never put lead down range with it. Get some training. You can, if you want to go on the super cheap, you can buy VHS tapes that can teach you how to be proficient with pistols.
And go to your school board meetings, because we do need gun training in our schools for safety.
Here she is. Here she is. O'Malley May's here. She's the pistol instructor.
O'Malley May.
How
Hey,
are
girl.
you doing, Mallory? We should bring her, but I mean, if this guy had gone through Mallory's class, I promise you, he would not be in trouble right now. There would have been no sympathetic squeeze. There would have been none of that.
I would want to agree with you because, like I said, I hear that in my head all the time. But again, in a split-second decision, adrenaline and fear and everything.
That's where that muscle memory comes. That muscle memory. My finger, when I pick up a pistol, my finger naturally goes up to the slide. That's where it goes. And it takes a conscious thought for me to move it to the trigger.
I get that. I learned that quickly.
That is my muscle memory for it.
I totally agree with you, Jared. But again, when you're engaged, I just don't see me putting my finger in a position where I would need extra time.
It's all muscle memory.
But
get trained.
Maybe I would. I don't know.
Maybe
I
I
doubt it,
should
though.
go to law school real quick.
Telling you, because the issue
I'll go
right
get my
now.
law degree at the Costco, and then I'll go defend this.
But
guy.
are you an alumni?
No, I'm a Crowley.
I'm surprised I got in. I was alumni though. But leave me alone, banging. But no, seriously. He right now he has put jeopardy in civilians having the right to self-defense.
I don't know. I think a lot of people just
'Cause
I
it looks
remember the
bad.
reports in Houston coming out after it happened and
And then
everybody
the video got released.
Yes.
Has there
everybody
been one
was
news
like,
station? Has there been one? Any Fox? Has there been one gun shooting show, including that big high price lawyer that does a YouTube show that all he does is self-defense law cases? He says this guy's toast.
No,
He says this guy's money, 8 times, 9th round toast. He says I couldn't defend that. And this guy's the top self-defense lawyer on earth. And he says, yeah, what are you going to do there?
Well, I think that hopefully there are enough peers judging him.
I interrupted family prayer for dinner watching your live stream. Yes, Mallory, we should bring Mallory
Amen.
on again. We need to have Mallory on. We need to just hold
And
this
Fred,
conversation. We need to have Fred and Mallory come on in here and give us the chat, the spiel, right now, Mallory, we're talking about that shooting at the taqueria in Houston, how that guy had a good shoot until it looks like he had a sympathetic squeeze, and now he's screwed for it.
Yeah, that last shot.
And that's the killer. It's that sympathetic squeeze is.
I don't think it's going to have the effect against constitutional carry like
I hope it
like
doesn't.
you think. And I think because at least there are 12 people or more alive because of it, or at least now the fact that it was a toy gun is irrelevant.
Yeah, that's irrelevant.
But according to the
Completely
owner of that
irrelevant.
restaurant and every person he robbed in that restaurant, those people are all safe and
Yeah, 100%.
and they're going. I mean, I just know there was a lot of press on that right after that happened until
And
the video came
Had
out.
that guy kept his finger off the trigger, he would be a hero. Women would love him. Men would want to be him. And now,
settle down.
Laces out. Hey guys, look, my wife is saying it's dinner time. We're gonna have to wrap this up, and I'm sorry for this guy that he had that 9th shot go off.
I think it was Fred. It looks like he was standing up when it went off. It looks like when he bent down to grab that pistol, and as he stood up, I think engaging those quads, I think his finger joined the party. That's what I'm thinking. I don't know if he did it on purpose, then I don't know what to say, because that was dumb. If he did it on purpose, he needs to go to the college for removing your head from your 4th point of contact.
Or just anger management.
Accidents happen, guys.
That's true. Well, I've had a wonderful time.
Yes,
and I love you,
me too.
Fred, and
Yes.
Mallory and Eric and Jen. Thank you guys for watching some of the show, if not all of it.
Yeah.
You guys are so
Our
great.
combat vets take that final kill shot a lot. I wonder if that is a vet. One, our combat vets do not do that if anyone ever asks them, ever. Or if anyone's around that could see it,
Unless there's
ever.
cameras in there.
or if there's any way that they could be reported on, ever. Combat vets have been strung up and hung out to dry for that shit.
That's why we take prisoners of war, right?
That is why we take prisoners.
Which I never remember to
It's
do
a-
when I'm in Call of Duty.
It is a
Shame.
duty. We actually take an oath to take prisoners.
Not only that, but like when we take prisoners and we're short on MREs, we give the prisoners 3 MREs and we only get 2.
That is
Per
a
day.
fact. Because if you ever,
That's how nice we are.
man, if there's even a whiff to your command that you did that, you're strung up. You're in trouble. You never want that. So, no. And you can argue that might have happened in fast-moving war, but, you know.
It happens in movies.
Yeah, movies. That's all Hollywood.
I know a lot of stuff happens in movies, you know, pizza delivery, ladies are cute and they think you are too. And movies are fiction, guys.
What movies are those?
He's thinking of pepperoni pizza.
Oh, I think he's thinking of the other type of movies. Isn't it usually the guy is the delivery guy?
Actually, I think it's Domino's
working on
here
a
in this
pool.
neighborhood. It's always been a lady delivery lady.
Okay.
I think so. But anyways, you guys have a good night. I'm going to get a hold of you and Mallory, Fred and Mallory. I'm going to get a hold of you guys. I do want to have another, because Dave wants to pump Bitcoin at everyone, and I want to pump gun training at everyone.
Except for the school boards. You never joined me on that one.
What about the school boards?
I'm telling you, we got to take away square dancing and basketball, replace it
Oh,
with gun
no, I
training.
join you with that all the
Oh,
time.
yeah. I'm
Okay.
with you with
All
that
right.
too.
I've
good.
never not joined you with that. I think they need one and some trades back. But yes, I'm 100% with you.
Oh, I'm with you with 1,000%. We should have a gun classes. We should have old trade classes. Everything in school. But I also think the state should run the school and not the counties should run their schools and not the federal government.
Burgess steak. That sounds good, Fred. It's not too late for me too.
All right, guys.
Oh my gosh,
All right.
maybe we should go there.
You guys have a wonderful night. Mallory, Fred, look for my call. We're going to line something up. Talk to you soon.
Bye, guys. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.